Good evening, Trojan fans. Welcome to USC Postgame Live here on the Voice of College Football. And let me just say one thing. My name is Tony Altimore, and I just want to say, fight on. What a night, everybody. It was a hard-fought game. Washington State was every bit as good as we thought they would be. Those of you guys who've watched our channel and saw our pregame talk on the Pac-12 show know that we had a lot of respect for Wazzu. We knew they were going to be good, and they were. But USC held them off, beat the spread with a 30-14 win, taking USC to 6-0 on the season. Guys, the Trojans are now in control, and with a shocking UCLA beatdown of Oregon, 42-32, the stage is set for two big games they're going to dictate this season. We're going to see next week USC going into Salt Lake City to play Utah, and then that USC-UCLA rivalry game is going to be something else. But tonight was special. Now, we want to tell you guys real quick about what our goal is for the show tonight. Our goal is to talk with you guys, especially any of you that might have been at the stadium. We've got our team here that were at the game. We want to talk to any of you guys that watch the game and have thoughts on it, want to talk about USC and the season ahead. And there's a couple ways that you can interact with us for this. First of all, you can reach out and actually join us here on the show. So I'm going to put in the call-in link right there. We're going to put call-in links. Wrong one. We're going to put call-in links around in the chats as well, so you can just click on that directly. So we want to hear from you guys there. You can also join us in the chat. So in the live chat, just put your comment in. We'll monitor the chat and talk about it. If you do a super chat, that's not it goes scrubbing for money, but it stands out, and then we can actually see it a little easier. And then the other thing is you can also tweet at us. So you can tweet at me. I'm TJ Altimore, or Rick is LBC Trojan. Tim is Tim Prangley Jr. And you'll be able to see those names come up. And again, all of this is also in the description. So we want to thank you guys for joining us. And it's going to be kind of a fun night as we celebrate another big Trojan win. So without further ado, let me bring on my partner in crime. Guys, LBC Trojan. He is on the phone with us in the car on the way home from the stadium. LBC, what did you think about that big win?
Hey, Tony, good evening. How are we doing?
Oh, doing fantastic. I love that victory. Trojan John's pointing out we are 6-0. It was undefeated, and it was every bit the game I thought it was going to be.
How am I? Can you hear me? Am I coming in?
We
clear?
can. Yep, you're good.
Checking here for.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Trojan John is absolutely right. We are 6-0, and you know what that means, Tony? We are bowl effing eligible, brother. We are going to a bowl game. So
is it wrong, LBC? In my mind, I'm sniffing the roses.
Yes, we are bowl eligible. I know that sounds like a minor detail that we're actually talking in the second week in October, but we are, or actually the first week in October. But we're bowl eligible. Is fantastic. It was a hard-fought victory. I had the Trojans winning this 38-17. It was a little bit lower scoring than that. We hit a field goal at the very end to beat the spread, so to speak. But this was a night that featured Travis Dye, workmanlike. I have pros and I have cons on that because we didn't see any other running back, be it Austin Jones or Darwin Barlow. I have my thoughts on that.
We saw a little bit of relief. Travis Dye, I don't know if you can see this up because you're in the car. Travis Dye tonight had 28 carries for 149 yards.
Yes, and he took all the carries on that last drive, and he looked a little bit shaken up towards the end. I don't know if that was from getting tackled or the culmination of tackles throughout the night on those 28 carries. But the question I have, if you remember, Austin Jones kind of got blown up on pass coverage last game. So no Blocky, no Rocky. And I don't know if he's hurt or because he's had some issues with blocking that he didn't see any carries tonight. But that's good and bad because, Travis Dye, do we really need him to get dinged up and kind of, going into the Utah week? So I'm a little concerned about that, but the guy's a stud. He had a swing pass on the last drive for 10 yards to keep the drive going. Kind of stalled out. We got a field goal, but interesting evening. We saw some drop passes by some of the receivers. In fact, there was a gentleman that was sitting next to me at the Coliseum on the drive where Mario Williams eventually caught that touchdown pass in the peristyle end zone. But he dropped the pass wide open on that drive, and the guy next to me couldn't believe it. I said, he'll make up for it. And certainly, what did he do? And the refs had to review the call once again. I think I lost 20 minutes of my life tonight on like 5 reviewed calls.
Oh, it was way more than that. It was way more than that.
Oh, my God. It was the clown show again. It's the Pac-12 clown show. And we can get into that a little bit later. Yes, I don't know. Viewers, callers, guys in the chat, what do you think of the referees? I mean, you've heard a lot of Pac-12 referees. I know we have a lot of people that are tuning in from across the country. This is what USC deals with night in and night out.
Constantly.
It's a clown show. And we had a good view of Kalen Bullock's hit. He hit at pad level. There was no way.
I'll tell you my issue with it, actually, LBC, is that dude's about 5'7".
Yes. And let me tell you.
So, like, yeah, they're like, oh, he hit his head. Well, his head is a freaking midget.
No.
Shorter than I am.
Credit the Washington State Husky coach, Jake Dickert. The dude is brilliant because Kalen Bullock got thrown out of the game, if you remember that play. And then the next play, they went right at Kalen Bullock's replacement, Anthony Beavers, number 15. And it was a pass interference. It was right in front of me. And credit to the receiver who actually caught the ball, because if it was pass interference, it would have been a 15-yard penalty. But the guy caught the ball, so they were within the 7-yard line, and they ended up scoring. So, but that is a great coaching call right there. You're going to go after the replacement who is stone cold on the sidelines. And hey,
well, you know, I'll tell you, I thought it was a great, very well coached game by Washington State the entire game. You know, one of the things that LBC, you didn't see this on the TV, but they talked a lot about, you know, I mean, Washington State's offensive coordinator was a wide receiver coached by Lincoln Riley, who then coached with Lincoln Riley. So I mean, they have a long history together, and certainly have a lot of respect for each other. And I thought Washington State played every bit the way they should. Now, so what some of you guys may not know this, but we had a pretty special Washington State week this week. We actually had the chancellor of Washington State University, their CEO, on the show, Dr. Elizabeth Chilton, that you can see here right there in the picture on the right. And she talked to us a lot about Wazzu and you know, certainly their athletic department. They have a really, really impressive athletic department run by Pat Shawn, who's their athletic director. You can see him in the picture right there. And then Jake Dick, she's the one that helped hire Jake Dickert. And he is just a fantastic, fantastic coach. So the link is right there. You guys can find it on this channel, or you can find it on Mark's main channel. On Mark's main channel now is 14,000 views. And so we got to learn a lot about Washington State. And I'll tell you, I hold that school in high regard. I hold that athletic department in high regard. And after tonight, I hold that team in high regard. LBC, did they do everything, Wazzu, that you thought they would?
Yeah, they did well, with the exception of turning the ball over. Actually, there's no turnovers in this game. It was clean from that standpoint. I thought Cam Ward was going to be, you know, turn it over a couple times. I thought our defense would force a couple of interceptions, but their game plan was pretty much underneath dink and dunk, and they featured their running back. I believe he had well over 100 yards. I want to say about 140. That guy was so small coming out of the backfield. He had a couple big runs. I think one for 28, another one for 40-plus yards. Those were his two big runs throughout the night. But they did sack Cam Ward, I want to say around 5 times. I know Thule had 3 with 4 TFLs. He was in the Coliseum. They named him the player of the game. And I know he had one also with Nick Figueroa. I think Solomon Byrd may have had one as well. So the defense played well. They gave up, again, some chunk yards, but for the most part, Cam Ward couldn't get off any big passes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought it was a great defensive showdown. I thought it was everything we expected it to be. I know we all want us to win, like Texas did today when Texas humiliated Oklahoma 49-0. But certainly this is a Washington State team I think should have been ranked, and I've been very open. I think that it's a team worthy of being ranked. Certainly a lot better team than LS Stinky U. I mean, for gosh sakes. I have no problems with walking away with a 30-14 win over that game. And beating the spread. Something USC, remember, guys, in the past decade, even when we've been doing great, we've not been beating the spread. And, I certainly don't like to judge things by Vegas, but, here we are. Shout out to Traveling Fools, who's joined us in the chat. TF, welcome to USC Postgame Live. Now, talk to us, Rick. What was the atmosphere like in the stadium? Not as big a crowd as I figured. I'd heard the ticket sales were pretty brisk, but it certainly looked like a lot of empty seats.
It was a lot of fun. The crowd, especially towards the end, it was jacked up. It was a good time. On third and fourth downs, the crowd was loud when it needed to be, and I'm sitting kind of on the press box side, 15th row, and it was a good time. I mean, it was a fun crowd. I was there with my two daughters and my nephew, and we had a blast, man. It was a good time. So it was a fun crowd. Some of the things that I don't know if they showed it on TV or not, but they had the 1972 national championship team honored. Phenomenal. They also had during a commercial
that was a team.
Yeah, they had during the commercial break, they had Allison Felix was there, and obviously 1989 Thorpe Award winner Mark Carrier led the team out through the tunnel. And that 1989 is a special number because that's me, man. I went to school with Mark Carrier and Junior Seau and Rodney Peete. That is my era. Yes, I'm an older Trojan, but those were some darn good teams.
Experienced Trojan, that's the phrase.
There you go. So yeah, it was a great crowd. Washington State, I think USC frustrated them. And this was something that I was going into PTSD because there was one drive where USC actually was the benefit of a holding call by Washington, and it was a personal foul, unsportsmanlike conduct on the same play. I mean, how many times did USC used to get that?
And I'll tell you what, Rick, you didn't hear it, but the play-by-play announcer, Mark Halford was Mark Halford was the color commentator. I thought the play-by-play announcer was the most egregiously kind of like unprofessional Washington State homer I've ever heard. I mean, we were kind of used to like, we're the big bad guy, so everybody cheers. Or Larry Pilgrim, by the way, Larry Pilgrim in the chat. Sorry about your Utes. We're going to talk about that game a little bit later. Big day for UCLA, bummer day for the Utes. Larry Pilgrim, we want to chat with you later this week on Utah. Now, getting back to the announcers, though, I mean, they were pretty much openly cheering for Wazzu, and they were. I mean, you could even hear on that play the guy went, "Oh!" Like he was somehow like personally injured and outraged. I was like, okay, be a play-by-play announcer, not a Washington State like home radio show guy. On Fox, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah, well, we experienced that on another broadcast. I want to say it was an ESPN game. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but yeah, we're used to that. We're USC.
We are. I mean, we are the Empire. We are the Empire. The Empire Strikes Back.
And we are back. And with every week, Tony, get used to it. The hate and the jealousy of not only USC, but the Pac-12 conference is going to come from our brethren that are east of the Rockies. Because I don't blame them because they're uneducated when it comes to knowing about this conference because we're a write-off. But that's okay. You're going to start learning about these teams. And I mean, look at UCLA today. Who would have guessed that? But when you go back-to-back beating Washington and beating Utah, that's a pretty good back-to-back combination there.
Yeah, I mean the Bruins. We're gonna talk about the Bruins guys in just a little bit. In fact, Chris, who's out there, we'd love to have you call in and chat about what a big win for your guys today. You know, this was a big day for LA.
So getting back to the penalties, I think we frustrated Washington State. They had 11 penalties for over 100 yards, from what I recollect, and USC had 5 for probably less than 50 yards, and they weren't major ones. I think I saw the line. You know, we had Haskins, we had Voorhees, Justin Dedes was at center. I saw Dedes was at guard, and we had Brett Nylon at center, and we had at the right tackle it was number 79. His name is escaping me right now. Jonah Meinheim. So it looked like Dedes maybe got dinged up towards the end, midway through the fourth quarter. Not too sure, but it looked like the line pretty much did okay. Caleb did get harassed. He was hurried. I think he was sacked once, maybe twice. But really, just an average passing night. I think he had about 16 completions, I want to say, for about 180 yards with 1 touchdown. But really, I think it was a team effort. I think the special teams played pretty well. What was your take on special teams, Tony?
I thought they were okay. You know, no problems. Will Rose is a really great guy for anybody who doesn't know him or hasn't read interviews with him. Will Rose salvaged a hold that was on one of the field goals that was really, really important and big. I would say the special teams looked not problematic like they have, but nothing to write home about.
Yeah, but when they're like nothing to write home about, that's pretty good. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. There was nothing where I've had concerns with the special teams already this year, and so it was nothing to write home about. Nothing like the years when we had special teams, running kicks back.
What stood out to you this evening, Tony?
What stood out to me was it was a tough game. We got it done, and that's what I thought we needed. You guys, if you guys think about like what it's like, when you do like a training program or you set something up where you're trying to get somebody ready for something, and you do like simulation based things like. Every week we have faced another increasingly harder step. We're adding another layer to that challenge and seeing how the team responds. So, we started off with some kind of patsies and we rolled the snot out of them. It was great. We got, Fresno State was a legitimate challenge. Then we had, Oregon State was a tough battle on the road. We got that taken care of. Last week we took care of business. And so now Washington State coming into town really worried me because I thought this was a really good team. This was a game we could have lost. This is a good team. We could have lost this game. And if we had lost this game, it would have been okay. I mean, this was a game this is a great team. This team is us and some referee flukes from being undefeated. This Washington State team probably should be undefeated right now. And we should have just handed them their first loss. So I didn't have any qualms about the fact that I thought this was going to be a tough game, and I thought we played pretty well. What did you guys think? Tell you guys in the chat. We would love to have you call in the show. We're waiting. Tim Prangley's going to be joining us live from the car on the way back from the Coliseum in just a few minutes. But we'd love to have any of you guys. If you're in the car right now, in fact, if you go in the chat, there is a link right there in the chat. You can call in. Who was just asking? Charles is asking, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have a special teams coordinator. Yeah, the head of special teams, I think it's an analyst or something. We do not have a traditional special teams coach. And there are a few reasons for that. It's they cover that extensively on Reign of Troy and on Ryan Abraham's podcast. They talk about it like more times than I want to count. But I thought special teams were okay. Rick, what else? What? Tell us more about the atmosphere in the stadium, because most of us in this chat here were all on TV. How is it different than you've seen earlier in the season?
Well, the other game I went to was Fresno State, and that was more subdued, and probably because it was Fresno State. It's an out-of-conference game. But this was my first conference game. Again, Washington State, as you mentioned earlier, Tony, they are a legitimate team. This could have been a game where USC possibly could have had a letdown looking towards Utah next week. But Washington State's 4-1. They were ranked technically number 26. They were number one outside the AP top 25 at receiving votes. And as you mentioned earlier, their only loss was to Oregon, where they were up by 12 with 4 minutes left before they cooped it. Now, yeah, the atmosphere, I think, is growing. You're getting more fans out there. I think they're, starting to come back from all the different issues that have plagued USC the past 5 years. Don't need to go into that, but if you're a Trojan fan, you know absolutely what I'm talking about. But I loved the music that was going. You had the Trojan band, you had the fireworks, the fourth quarter, lighting of the torch. People were jacked. They were into it on third down with the bell tolling. And, we were getting over on the refs because it was just ridiculous. They were taking forever. So people were engaged. It was great. I'm loving it. Like you had mentioned, Tony, every game is a little bit more challenging. A lot of people will say, well, what about ASU? Well, hey,
how about ASU?
Well,
now,
Rick,
real quick, guys. Rick, let's just veer off for just 1 minute and talk about what went down in the desert today. Because one of the things that we talked about last week was that Sean Guano, who, again, one of the most legendary high school coaches in Arizona history from Chandler High, stepped into ASU immediately, started trying to do cultural change. And people said, this team's getting better. And they gave USC kind of a fight. And some of you guys in the chat, the receipts are there. You guys kind of scoffed at that. And we said, hey, this ASU team looked better than they've looked all season. Well, they took that and they took down the Dogs today. So that was a lot better ASU team than I think people thought it was.
Yes, but I for one, called them a dumpster fire. And
we all did. I made the graphics of them as a dumpster. And with Herm, they were a dumpster fire. And kudos to Sean Aguano. Like really, great. We know he's a legend in the state of Arizona. But he's literally taken this team and in 2.5 weeks they won their first FBS game today. And he's extinguished the dumpster fire and he's cleaning out the dumpster.
Yes, and one of the things is ASU always gets up to play USC no matter what, because we are the team that they target. We do a lot. They recruit a lot in Southern California, and they get a lot of the players that can't get in SC, and they get a lot of them from the Inland Empire. They had some USC coaches. They had Chris Claiborne on their staff, former Butkus Award winner with USC. They had Chris Hawkins, a former defensive back with USC. Those were two of the coaches that were let go, but they know how to recruit the Southern California area very well, and they always compete against USC. And if you guys tuned into our Wednesday evening Pac-12 live chat show, we had Arizona and Washington and Arizona State, and one of them was going to go down because both Oregon and Washington historically haven't played well in the desert. And I believe the Huskies haven't in the desert at
it's like 20 years. Yeah, it's literally. I was literally in college. So I think when they last won in the desert.
And I predicted Washington would win, and they kept it close. But credit to ASU, they fought. They did not give up. And hey, Washington started off 4 games at home, and then you go 2 games on the road against UCLA and Arizona State, and now you're 4-2, and you got a tough rest of the Pac-12 schedule.
They do. Hey, real quick, we Shameless 10 just put up a great comment. I want to give this a double shout out because Shameless 10 says, "Can we finally give credit to Alex Grinch?" And Dale points out Grinch is doing a hell of a job, guys. I've been on the Grinch train. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. We knew he was a great defensive coordinator before he came in because we saw what he did when he was at Wazzu as a coach, and we saw how he took a wretched Oklahoma defense and made it not bad. And in a year, and he's taken our defense, which was beyond wretched, and has made them strong. You know, they have been a bend but don't break. And Up as Frag says, Grinch may be coaching himself into some head coach offers for other programs. You know, very, very possibly. I think he's done a heck of a job. LBC, what's your take right now? Mid-year report on defensive coordinator Alex Grinch.
I think he's doing a tremendous job. Going into this season, I had said that if we, my thought was if we could hold up the teams to 25 points on the year, then, we got a shot because our offense is very talented and high scoring. You saw that today. Washington State's a good defensive team. We were kind of average offensively, but the defense was there to carry the rest of the team. Giving up 14 points, tremendous. And we're averaging, I think, giving up 19-6. So that number's going to go a little bit lower. Who'd have thought that after 6 games, we're probably giving up 17.5 to 18 points a game? I think you would have taken that
in a minute. I had to cut my arm off for that. And Eddie Rain is saying best defense in the Pac-12 and giving us a whole bunch of giraffe emojis in honor of our good friend. What did you think about the angry giraffe tonight?
Speaking of that, and Eddie Reyna, Eddie Reyna, thanks a lot for your support. You're a great guy, and I associate to our friend Gentry, the giraffe.
G for giraffe.
The angry giraffe. But how many times do we actually call Eric Gentry's name tonight? Not a lot. It was Thule. It was Nick Figueroa. It was Solomon Burke.
Thule was amazing, but I'll tell you, and Eddie, you may not have seen all these as much live, but there were a lot of times when Gentry, had his hands around. Gentry was back there disrupting the play. I mean, Gentry, he wasn't always the one taking him down. Gentry made stuff happen, and Thule and Gentry tonight were just an amazing guys. Guys, hold on. We have to be mean. We have to get one little jab in just because it makes my heart warm. Question for you. Another question from Shameless 10 LBC. He wants to know, do you think the Sooners would trade their defensive staff today for Alex Grinch?
No, they wouldn't. You know why? Because they're salty. And they're blaming, and they're gonna blame their 49-0 loss on Lincoln Riley.
They are. No, they are. They are trying to blame today's 49-0 loss on Lincoln Riley. It's true.
Yes, but let me remind Sooner fans and the rest of our college football fans that are knowledgeable, they had their man. They had Brent Venables. There was a culture change. They were talking about the culture change. And don't believe them for a second, college football fans from these other programs. There's this thing called the transfer portal. Okay, and every team is an equal opportunity destination. Lincoln Riley worked it, and so did Lane Kiffin. Now, Brent Venables is a great defensive coordinator on how many Clemson national championships teams? Was it 2? I believe it was 2. So you can't recruit out of the transfer portal. You're stuck with all of these misfit toys from Alex Grinch and Lincoln Riley's defensive scheme. No, that's an excuse. I'm sorry.
Oh.
You got your coach.
Oh, yeah. The whiniest fan base in the country got their coach.
And guess what? Sooner fans, if you want to blame somebody, blame Ted Roof. He'll be fired before Monday. Ted Roof is a journeyman defensive coordinator that's been all over twice. And last year he was an analyst under Venables could be another program, but he was an analyst. And Venables brought him to Oklahoma to run the defense. He's the defensive coordinator. That was Venables who hired him. Okay,
I know, it's glorious, isn't it?
That is the guy who has given up 145 points in their 3 opening Big 12 losses. That's 48 points, a little over 48 points a loss.
I mean, you guys, tell us. I mean, at this point, is Oklahoma even gonna make a bowl? Might they go winless in the Big 12? Who knows? It's gonna be glorious. And bear in mind, I got a lot of great friends from Oklahoma. I know a lot of really awesome Sooners. They have, besides BYU, probably the most wretched and nasty and disgusting base of Twitter followers that I've ever seen. Like even among the Communist Party probably. And so it's just a riot. Those people kind of have what they had coming. They had it coming, and they got it.
And I'll get blasted because, I'm picking on OU. But you know what?
There's no pick. When they give up 49, there's no picking on.
Hey, we've been putting up 10 months of their BS from their fan base in the offseason and now in the season. And now, if you want to go ahead and stick to your guns and blame Lincoln Riley, go ahead, because you are just getting laughed at by the rest of the country. And you've got what you got coming to you. It's karma. I'm done talking about Oklahoma. Let's move on.
All right, we're moving on. We're ending it here with Deuce Fly's comment. OU fans are getting what they deserve. Those fans are nasty. Yeah, exactly. So we are done with Oklahoma because, guys, what a night. The Trojans won 30-14. LBC, should we do a quick walk through the Pac-12?
Before we do that, let me ask you a question. And this is what's great about having somebody at the Coliseum and then having somebody on our team like you, Tony, watching the game, because there's some things that I don't get and there's some things that you get and that maybe you don't see that I get at the Coliseum. But was there any discussion on why Austin Jones or Barlow were not playing? Any discussion?
There was not.
Okay. So,
in fact, they were asking about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what was up with Austin Jones.
So I think my guess with Austin Jones is because he's had some blown pass coverages that perhaps they were sending him a message. But the thing that concerns me is how is Travis Dye going to recuperate? How is he doing physically? Because it's going to be another challenge going into Utah. So hopefully he's going to be okay. And we move forward. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the
Well, actually, hold on real quick. First, LBC, we have another visitor live from the game. We've got co-host Tim Prangley has now joined us. Tim, LBC, we're just talking about the game. Fill us in on what was the game experience like for you tonight. Tell us about the stadium. Oh, Timmy, I think you're on mute. All right, when Tim comes off mute, there we go.
Sorry, Tony. I had to mute myself because I still had your guys' show. I still had the
okay, yeah. Tell us about the game. What was it like being there live?
Yeah, the energy early on. Mark Carey got everybody up to give him a shirt. Rick already covered that with you. It was a great beginning. It looked great. Defense looked great. That early stop, and we were moving down the ball. Everything looked great, and then all of a sudden we just started making some. I don't know. We just there's a lot of drops out there, right, middle of the game, and it was a bit. The crowd got kind of quiet. It was kind of weird.
Okay, interesting. We were just talking about certain Travis Dye, 28 carries, 149 yards. He really carried us tonight. He got his power through when he needed it. We didn't see much from the other running backs, interestingly enough.
Yeah, they rode the hot hand. I mean, a lot of those yards Travis Dye got were Travis.
And he got them hard. I mean,
there were some.
He earned them.
Yeah, he was. You couldn't tackle him in a phone booth tonight because there was not a lot of room. It looked like, in those gaps, and he would just squeeze his way through and get those positive yards. So I think that maybe in this game they're early on that you did see Relief Brown was getting some play. I think in the first half. But I don't know if he got injured or what, but it just seemed like he became the bell cow, and thank God he did, because he got some tough yards down the stretch that really helped us out.
Yeah, no, he definitely did. And hey guys, we got our first guest. We've got a good friend of the show, Tide Guy, calling in. Tide Guy, first of all, congratulations to your beloved Crimson Tide. They won a tough one tonight over Texas A&M. Tide Guy, tell us, what do you think about the Trojans?
I was actually disappointed that I couldn't watch more of the game than what I was able to, because we started an hour after you. But I did get to watch most of your first half, and I was really impressed with the way you played. I thought
they're good, aren't they? They're a pretty good team, aren't they?
They really are, and I think it's sad that they're not getting the recognition I don't think that they deserve. Um, I don't think enough people, have up to this point. I think tonight you guys being able to play a little earlier, I think more people are going to be able to see it, and I think more people watched it. But that first half, I thought you guys played really well. And seeing by the score, it looked, you guys shut them down in the second half. Um, but I was really impressed with what I saw, and I really think, you guys could really make a run. And I did get to watch a little of the UCLA game, so that could be a hell of a game between USC and UCLA this year. I mean, I'm really impressed with, the LA area. You guys are doing wonderful.
Yeah, what a day for LA. The rest of in fact, for those of you guys who follow, I love the No Truck Stops podcast. I think those guys are a lot of funny. And they had classified themselves as USC fearers, and they amended that to be LA fearers. And hey, guys, we got another one of our callers, Andy, who we were just talking to a little bit ago. Andy, welcome to the show. Tell us about your thoughts on the big game tonight.
Yeah, it was another one of those great heart attacks where you were. It's like this the whole season's been. You let your expectations get really high, then they come back to earth, then they go high again, then they come back. I get dizzy after games like that, where I realize if somebody told me back in February that we'd be, hey, you got a real shot at a 10-2 season, I'd have hugged them and said, from your lips to God's ears. And now after tonight, it's very legit possibility that that's the worst case scenario is 10-2. But I realized early on, the only reason I felt disappointment during any of these games was because my expectations were so freaking high.
Yeah. I agree with you. I felt the same way actually. And in fact, I've actually sort of been wondering, like trying to calm myself down a little bit to be like, okay, this I originally thought my original thing at the beginning of the season, you guys in the chat, what do you guys think about this? I thought, okay, if we're 8-4, good. If we're 9-3, hallelujah. But the idea of 10-2 just seemed like unthinkable. And now, like 10-2 would be okay.
Yeah,
like
for that to be crazy. The lowest expectation now, things have gone very, very right. And all of us who watch the games and care about stats and care about player development, of course, we're going to want more. And every time something goes wrong on defense, we question Alex, on and on and on. But man alive, when things go well, game's over. You look at the score, you're like, hey, we're 6-0. End of conversation.
And I'll tell you one of the other things too that I thought a lot about tonight. I've been keeping very close watch on Notre Dame. What's going to happen here with Notre Dame. And I don't know if for those of you guys who saw Notre Dame beat BYU. I mean, I think this is a very mediocre BYU team, and Notre Dame beat them. The game was kind of close to the end, but Notre Dame pretty much had that game under control. So, I mean, I think that Notre Dame game is very winnable. I mean, the big showdown, it looks like, is going to be the classic USC-UCLA game.
That's probably the most exciting takeaway of the whole thing is that it could come down to an amazing November 19th that could be a preview of the championship game or anything else for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want, I'm going to knock on wood here, but can you guys imagine if we had the UCLA game and then a rematch for the championship game? That's not outside the realm of possibility.
Nuts.
And we got a friend of the show, Gixxer Squid. You did call the UCLA Utah game last show. You did tell everybody, and you were spot on correct. Tim, what's your take, real quick, on the UCLA game?
UCLA has looked amazing the last 2 weeks. I think whatever they were doing in their non-con schedule was smoke and mirrors. It looks like that offense is hitting on all cylinders, and that pass rush, man. I hope we get our line healthy and our issues up front worked out before we do face that line. Because I got news for everybody, it's gonna be a battle. And the way they're playing, if DTR stays this DTR, like Chris calls them, DTR 2022, and Charbonnet and Bobo, if they're all going on hitting on all cylinders, it's going to be a hell of a game.
It really is. And it looks like you guys in the chat are, kind of agree. You guys kind of feel the same way. Dale saying I would have been happy with 9-3. Roger Dodger, who we love Roger Dodger on the show, says managing both expectations and heart disease was easier with no Hope Helton.
Well, it just goes to show you can't look at preseason rankings, and a lot of this stuff, because the teams that I thought were going to give us the most trouble are now looking like the most vulnerable, right? At first it was going to be Utah and Notre Dame, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form writing those two teams off. But man, UCLA's come out of nowhere, and this was a good Washington State team. I'll admit I completely overlooked them at the beginning of the season. I looked at our schedule. I'm like, okay, we got Washington State right before the Utah game, so that's great. But it is college football, and on any given Saturday, someone can step up, as we've seen. But the biggest thing we have to do is not to count our chickens for they hatch, because we don't know how healthy we're going to be. So let's just take it one game at a time and hope this offensive line stays healthy. Because did Haskins come back? I know he went and get hurt.
I thought he did. I'm not sure.
So he has an ongoing shoulder issue, and he came out for a while. And that's where we're having some now. Guys are coming, they're playing, but they're playing. They're not getting time to rest up, get healthy. And so with Haskins, again, I think it's his shoulder. I mean, again, it's hard being at the Coliseum and knowing what's going on. But he came out and he was having some trouble with that. His arm, he was favoring his left side, his upper body. And I believe his earlier injury was a shoulder injury. So let's hope we keep our lines healthy.
And we're going to need him for next week with Utah. That Utah game, I mean, they went down to UCLA today, but that's still a strong Utah team, and playing in Salt Lake City is going to be real tough. Tim, you were there at the game. Gixxer Squid tells us the crowd was about the same occupancy as last game, yet the crowd was more fervent. He says everybody's buying what Lincoln Riley's selling. What did you think, Tim? Was the crowd more fervent tonight than last game?
They went to sleep in the middle, but they came on. When we had fourth downs, when we had those third downs we needed late in the game, right? We needed to get some stops. They absolutely came alive. And this, there was the same amount of people there, but you can tell these are your hardcore fans, right? These are the ones that aren't waiting for a national championship. They're getting going before the bandwagon, fires up. So they're ready. It's the same thing though with USC fans. You got about half of them that that just kind of sit on their hands, and then you got the ones that get really loud. And you did notice in this game that when they needed to get loud, they did get loud. So it was good to see.
Well, and I'll tell you guys something kind of interesting we found this week. I did kind of something kind of crazy this week. We took a look at the Pac-12 stadiums just to see how big is our state. Like, we're trying to think about crowd noise and all that. Our stadium is one of the biggest in the country space-wise, even though it only holds 77,000 people, because our seats are a lot bigger. So check this out, you guys. If you can see it on the screen, Michigan Stadium, Ohio Stadium, they all fit inside the Coliseum. Like, the Coliseum is a way bigger stadium than Michigan, even though it holds 40,000 fewer people. And you take a look at this, even Tennessee. Look how much bigger our stadium is. So when our crowd is a little bit spread out, so when our crowd is loud, our fans are really, really loud, because it's tougher for us to make a lot of noise. It's why we sometimes get jokingly called the LA Mausoleum.
Yeah. And originally, right, we had when we had more bleacher seating, I think
we had 110,000 seats originally.
Yeah, and then we went to and then we got some good seats in originally before we did the luxury new press box in the tower, and we're at 93,000, and we're still. It's not like we're a small.
No, we're still big. We're the only stadium in the conference bigger than us now is the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, but I mean, I do like it as a fan. I think if we can fill it, if we can get that 78,000, we can get loud. And they're doing a lot of cool things as well. It seems like a younger vibe in the Coliseum. They got the DJ in there. I'm not. I'm somewhere in between. I would still like to hear less DJ and more
band.
More band, definitely, right? but the times are changing, right? You got a new student body, you got new stuff going on. Again, I know I'm getting older because they were doing like younger music. Well, not really, but they weren't playing the oldie, the classics like I like. But they're getting a younger crowd.
Oh, Tim, you're cutting out.
Can I add a counterpoint to Tim's point?
Of course. We're all go. By the way, LBC, welcome back. You made it home through the traffic, all right?
Yes, I did. Who's our guest? I see a Trojan.
We do. We've got Andy. Andy's with us, and Ty Guy's with us.
Ty Guy, happy birthday, Andy. Good to meet you. Fight on, brother. Were you at the game or were you watching it at home?
I was watching.
Okay. So guess what? Tim's bringing up a point. He's a little bit older. I'm older than Tim. And I used to sit in the student section, and I used to make fun of all those old alums that would just sit down there and weren't participating. Well, guess what? I now sit on the other side. I'm on the press box side, and I am an older alum, and I love the music. I thought it was great. At the end of the game, between the commercial breaks, they were playing Living on a Prayer and Don't Stop Believing, and the whole stadium was singing the song because the DJ would put it on pause and everybody was singing it. It was, hey, he's getting the energy up. That's what he's there to do. They've got that. They've got the band. The band's not going away, just like they had the dance team out with the Song Girls, and they also had the Cardinal of Gold Divas in the student section. So why blame USC for being progressive and catering to everybody in their fan base? I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it looked like the fans were having fun on the show. We've got Sean Chapman says he was at the game and it was electric for the amount of fans that were there. Made me very happy. Fight on, Sean. And Sean, call it the show by all means. Tell us about your take from being there.
I agree 100%. I agree with Sean Chapman. He hits it right on the nail.
Yeah. So speaking of losing that advantage next week, right, going on the road, these guys are coming home disappointed, angry. Does that increase their focus or leave them stunned and vulnerable? Because I'm a little worried they're going to come home pissed, right? I mean, blackout or not, they're going home to what is already an angry stadium for visitors, and now they're going to have a little extra chip on their shoulder after the debacle today.
What's your thought?
I think you're right on that, because I mean the thing about Utah is Utah's a good team, and they're well coached. They're defending conference champions. They're not surprised. I think they come back hungry.
Yeah. Andy, I think that's a valid point. In fact, I was talking to a friend who's also an SC grad before the game, and he brought up that exact point. And I said to him, hey, look, it's just another challenge for USC. I love it because, first off, we got to get over Washington State, and we cannot look past them because that's the first thing we have to do on national TV. Okay, check that off the box. We did that. Yeah. Now we can control our own destiny. Yes, Utah's going to be upset, but guess what? We can go into their house, hand them their second loss, be 7-0, and then we control our destiny because we got UCLA, right? And that will be another quality win. So we get a quality win with Washington State. We're going to get if we beat Utah, the challenge is in front of us. And yes, that's part of it. If you're going to be a championship team, you're going to have to take care of it. And if we beat Utah, adios. They're no longer going to be in the Pac-12 championship picture, because they would have 2 losses and one of them would be to us.
Yep.
And one's to UCLA. So
did you guys see anything today from them that exposes them that we could take advantage of? Anything specific? Because I was trying to look for something, and I mean, other than DTR being who he is, embarrassing them on certain moments, I was looking for something that we could exploit.
I think you hit it right there. I think everything DTR did, Caleb Williams can do, and probably better. And as D says, he thinks we can run on Utah. I agree. I mean, I think we'll be able to run on Utah, and I think our receivers. I don't think Washington State has really good secondary. I thought they played really well. I also thought they got away with a lot from the refs, but I thought they played pretty well. And Utah certainly didn't look nearly as good as they did tonight.
Yeah.
Well, and that was part of the equation that helped Florida beat Utah on the road down in Gainesville. Is Anthony Richardson had a great game, and he hasn't had one at that level since. Credit DTR. DTR had a great game. He had two good games in a row, and that was the only way. I think we talked about on our Pac-12 show on Wednesday that if UCLA had a chance, DTR would have to come out with another spectacular game.
And real quick, guys, I'm sorry. Real quick, we're going to bring in Sean, who was at the game. Sean, welcome to the Voice of College Football's USC Postgame Live. Tell us about the game tonight at the stadium.
You guys hear me?
We can, yep.
Okay, yeah. So I'm young. I'm 26, and I was spoiled because I grew up in the Pete Carroll era. And, it's been a long, 7 or 8 years under Helton, but today what I saw at the stadium, it was very live. It was very, very energetic. I got tickets in the 300 section, so it's kind of in the nosebleeds, but even up there, the fans that were there, they were into it. Every third down, every stop and completion, they were very into the game.
Sean, were you at the Fresno State game?
Yes, I was.
Okay, how did tonight's atmosphere compare with Fresno State?
To be honest, even though it wasn't I feel like today was our most complete game, to be honest. The fan reactions to the scoring in the Fresno State game were a little more I don't know, I feel like they weren't sure, but today the energy just felt like the real fans filtered into the stadium and they stayed.
Yep. It's coming back.
It's coming back. Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just saying I was very pleased. I felt like a kid going to the Pete Carroll games where, we weren't LA fans, where we were very Merriweather. We were into it. It was very cool to see.
Good. That's what we need. I was also, I'll tell you guys, I don't know if you guys saw the number. UCLA, despite giving free tickets to all their students, despite selling tickets for $5 or $20 or whatever they were, and all of the whole state of Utah claimed that they were going. And the I don't know if you guys saw, they still only pulled 41,000 people in that stadium tonight.
Yeah, I hate to say it because I don't want to say anything good about that team over there, but they do seem legit. It seems like Chip Kelly used the first 4 games as almost like a preseason to kind of work the kinks out, even though they almost dropped one to South Alabama. But I feel like they're kind of filtering out who's going to be on the field, and not so much, not a lot of substitutions and stuff like that.
Well, and as Chris reminds us, they don't give out any points for how many people are there.
That's very true.
Because if they did, LSU would have been smoked out of their own stadium today, like a pistol whipped little toy.
Hey, Tony, let's not talk about the Byu Bengals in that form and fashion. It was not a night game. LSU plays better at night. Yes.
Is that their excuse this time?
It was a noon kickoff. The corn dogs and jambalaya were still warming up. So don't diss the Byu Bengals with a 12 o'clock kickoff. They're juiced and ready to go at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Actually, I've been in New Orleans, and a noon kickoff is probably just left over from the night before.
Isn't it better the second day, though?
Sorry, go ahead.
Isn't it better the second day, like pizza?
It is. It's better the second day.
I didn't get to check, but how did our friends in South Bend do? What happened there?
Our friends in South Bend held on. They were up big the whole game, held on to beat BYU.
Okay.
Oh, guys, hold on. We've got another special guest. We've got friend of the show, number one fan, Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports. Jeffrey, what'd you think of the Trojans tonight pulling a big win?
Hey, I wasn't gonna call in because I watched most of the Alabama game with my dad or whatever, but yeah, and I was just on with Mark, but my camera froze, so I got cut off. So I just thought I'd hop on over here before I go to bed. But yeah, USC's looking really good. I saw a little bit of the highlights or whatever. USC, man, I mean, I didn't think this would be an upset. A lot of people thought it would be an upset. We kind of talked about it on Wednesday, but man, I mean, USC is looking like they're improving, especially a lot of people coming into this season really thought that USC was going to be able to put up a lot of points, but their defense was going to struggle. But their defense is doing really good. I mean, their defense has actually really stepped up. And like I think Tim was saying on Wednesday as well, as long as their defense can stay in this top 30 and their offense is a top 10 caliber team, I mean, they definitely could. They definitely could run the table. I think. Don't they have UCLA next week?
No.
Who?
USC.
No, we have Utah.
Utah. Oh, Utah. That's it. They have Utah. When do they play UCLA again?
Second to last game of the season.
November.
Second last game of the season. My
November
bad.
19th. November 19th.
But
Yeah,
the way they're playing, I think they can beat Utah for sure. Yes.
From your lips to God's ears.
Exactly.
And then hopefully beat UCLA. I mean, guys, it's we don't want to jinx it by talking about what could be, but can we just have a moment in our heads without speaking about it? Because we don't want to jinx anything, just to think about what could be.
Let's just enjoy 6-0 for right now, to be honest.
Good point. Because we'll take what we can. I mean, if I win or lose next week, I mean, we're still light years, I think, ahead of where we thought we would be for the rebuild.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
before the season, I had SC with 2 losses by the Utah game. Well, one loss by the Utah game. But they're playing above schedule.
Well, these days that makes you a pessimist.
Yeah.
I'm a realist, but being watching under Helton, they did kind of make me a pessimist. So I'm trying to, wean on those habits.
We're all still shocked.
Andy and Sean, share with us, what were your prediction going into the season? What did you realistically think USC's record was going to be?
Like a lot of folks, I thought 9-3 was achievable. Once I saw Caleb Williams play, I mean, I loved the Lincoln Riley news. I loved the transfer portal news. I just got excited. But like everybody, my expectations started to go up with every transfer portal commitment. And then it was like, well, what is possible? But theory and reality are so different, man. Paper versus, the spreadsheet reality versus playing field reality. But once it started to unfold, and what were you going to take to the bank with Rice? I mean, were you going to build your whole season of expectations on that? But yeah, I thought 9-3, like I could live with that, given where we were last year. Because I talk about tapping into emotions. I'm trying to remember what I was feeling last year at this time.
Yes, exactly.
And if I put those two things next to each other, I'm a happy camper.
Jeffrey, arts and crafts.
Sean,
I don't have an Ole Miss hat, man. I don't have an Ole Miss hat.
All Gigster Squid is here as excuses. And Alex Grinch and Lincoln Riley don't deal in excuses.
Hey, I will say on that, I know this is USC, but I will say on that game, man, Utah definitely is looking a little, I don't know.
Beatable.
I mean, yeah, again, that's why I'm saying USC can beat them because, I mean, I just thought UCLA coming off a tough Washington game where they got the win and Utah kind of just ran over Oregon State. I thought they'd win, but, man, I was wrong. I mean, yeah, like I said, if I had an Ole Miss hat, I'd put it on, man. I would, but I don't have one.
Guys, some of you guys from our show, we'll try to put in a link in the chat in just a second. If you don't follow Jeffrey's channel, Only Talk Sports, Jeffrey does a great job every day covering teams from around the country. Far better than people who have done this for a living for years. So, Jeffrey, I want to give you Trojan John's question. How did you like that Texas Chainsaw Massacre today?
Yeah, actually, I don't want to sound dumb, but I don't even know what you're talking about. So, can you refresh me on that?
Texas 49, Boomer Sooner.
Okay. I didn't get the yes. I just
He's too young to remember the original movie.
Okay,
True,
I don't watch rated R movies. Okay, I get it now. Texas bludgeoning Oklahoma. That's my toughest word. I usually use bludgeon. Yeah, that was ugly. I just talked about it with Mark over on the main channel, man. I was like, I mean, my thing is about Oklahoma is that why, if you got a defensive coordinator coach now in Brent Venables, he was defensive coordinator at Clemson, and their defense at Oklahoma is awful. I don't understand why they can't stop any team. And obviously Dylan Gabriel's hurt, but still, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, it definitely is a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was, ugly, very ugly, and definitely probably the worst result of the day for any team, just by how embarrassing it was, because Oklahoma they don't ever get blown out like that. And obviously they've dominated the Texas rivalry recently anyway. So yeah, that was ugly.
And by the way, speaking of things that are ugly, guys, friend of the show, the Stanford Tree, dancing around in his new costume tonight. Stanford is beating Oregon State right now, 10-7.
Woof.
So
I don't know if you guys watched my video on that game, but I picked Oregon State. So I like Stanford a lot, but I'm kind of hoping Oregon State wins. So my videos, I'll go 8-2. But yeah, Stanford, man, I mean, they've played awful to start this season, but I guess Oregon State has been kind of reeling, because I'm not watching the game right now, because usually when I go on with you guys, I try to keep the TV off, because it makes the connection better or whatever, because I got streaming and all that. But who's playing quarterback for Oregon State?
I'm not sure, because I have to look at that. Somebody in the chat who's watching the game, chime in on that in the chat, because I can't see right now. Stanford has the ball. I'm just sort of watching out of the corner of my eye while I talk to you guys. Hey guys, we're also bringing in real quick Austin Williams, another good friend of the show. Austin, welcome. Austin, what did you think about the Trojans today?
Hey, congratulations on the win, fellas. Fight on, as y'all like to say.
Thank you. Fight on to you. What did you think of Washington State? As good as we expected?
That first half, they showed very good signs of that. Especially Cam Ward. He threw a nice pass that ended up somehow being caught. I don't know how that running back caught it. That's just incredible to me.
PTSD.
And it ended up being a PI anyway, so.
And he still caught it while sitting on his butt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was quite a pass.
Yeah. But after that, though, after the first half was over, USC went into the half up 3. Second half, the defense stepped up, the offense made the plays, and y'all took care of business.
We'll take it, right?
Yeah, that was a fluke play. That was the first play right after Kalen Bullock got kicked out for targeting, which was a very, very questionable call. I don't know Andy, what you thought about that on TV. I mean, I thought he hit him at pad level from where I was sitting. And then, I said earlier, credit Jake Dickert, the Washington State coach. He went right at Anthony Beavers on that next play, and that was the play you got. It was pass interference. He made a miraculous catch. Kudos to him, because if that's a pass interference call and he doesn't catch the ball, it's a 15-yard penalty. And they went in and got their touchdown. But that's football. Stuff like that happens. It's just another example of the Pac-12 refs we've been dealing with forever. And if anything, slow down the energy in that stadium. It was the Pac-12 refs and all of the review calls.
Yeah,
real quick, Sean had to take off. Sean, thanks for calling in. Definitely give us a buzz next week for sure, too.
I was just going to say my take on the targeting was that any player under 5 feet should be disqualified from being the victim of targeting, because there's no way your average D1 defensive player is going to get low enough to never be called for targeting. I mean, the dude's what, 5'6", 5'7"?
He's about 5'7", maybe.
Yeah, and hunched over and running. I mean, you'd have to get on all fours to not target the guy. So I think
you could be on all fours and still be targeting. Eric Gentry could be on all fours and still be targeting.
He'd have to lay down.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of a weird issue. I think they need to. I think that they need to relook at that. Of course, that was in the first half, though, right? So we don't have a lingering after effect.
Right, he's back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought targeting was if you led with the crown of your helmet. Is that not what it is in college?
I think it's helmet, forearm, or shoulder. But if you target the head or neck area, you could be called for it.
And the problem is this guy's so short that like you can't really not hit the helmet.
Right.
Because he's 5'6".
So you just got to slide and leg whip him.
We were speaking
Yeah,
about
which by the way, which as we saw from the game the other night last week was it the UCLA game, I think. Is also a penalty.
Yeah, tripping.
Yeah.
I think you just have to go hockey goalie on all these guys. Just lay down and flail and
exactly. Oh.
Yeah, like I said,
guys, we got Chris gave us the right interpretation. Or if you hit the crap out of someone and you play in the Pac-12, that's also targeting.
Yes,
that's right.
I almost
that's
didn't
right, Chris,
come on
right.
because of the fact that I didn't watch any of the games, so I didn't want to sound like like I don't know what I'm talking about because I really don't. I didn't get to see any of the game, and I will watch the Utah game, USC Utah game next week because of the fact that I don't think Alabama's going to be on at the same time, so I don't have that commitment with my dad there, but because Alabama's at 3:30. But my problem with targeting anyway is like you guys are talking about. I don't like the fact that when an offensive player ducks his head, sometimes the defensive player, you're going to hit the head. You can't help it. And it's like they'll never call targeting on the offensive player. It's always the defensive player's fault, but a lot of times targeting only happens because of what the offensive player does. It's not really fair. And targeting is a very inconsistent call anyway, because I've seen plays where they've almost knocked the guy's head off and he's limping and he's hurt and the guy's going off the field and they don't call anything. And then you got plays where you barely tip the helmet. They call targeting, and then the guy, if it's quarterback or whoever's fine. It's like, why call the targeting and kick someone out of a game on a play that didn't even affect the player versus a play where the guy's halfway injured and, probably can't even play in the game anymore, and they call it targeting. I don't think that's fair.
I agree with you. Real quick to Trojan John, when you look at, and I don't know if you were at the game or you had a good enough TV or whatever, his knee was down in the safety before the half. Was not a safety. His knee did hit the ground before the ball came out.
I had to watch that like 6 times because the best angle on his knee was the worst angle for the ball.
Yeah, exactly. But one of them it made it so it really was. But Trojan John makes another point I want to give a shout out to. He says, when will Lincoln Riley get props for the job him and his staff are doing? So I've given him props the whole time, guys. Can we collectively give Lincoln Riley all of the props in the world for taking a wretched football team and building something really pretty remarkable?
You know what? Every comment on every chat board and every forum this year is his props, because the only reason we have expectations and the only reason we're nitpicking is because he's doing such a good job. I mean, we're all of a sudden like,
great way to put it.
I have coming into this year to expect blowouts, games over by halftime every week. I mean, that's where my head started to go, and I've had to step back and go, come on. Why do I have those expectations? Exactly because he's doing a great job. Both sides.
I know, guys. Can we reflect on how bad we were last year?
That's what I'm saying. Go back a year ago now. What did you feel?
We're undefeated right now.
I love having Andy on the show. This is great because he feels what we feel. This is remarkable because you go back.
You're not alone.
To late November, freaking Lincoln Riley has been hitting doubles and triples every month. Just all these guys were getting through the transfer portal. It was just the greatest offseason. And so I look at other programs and you wonder, well, how come Brett Venables couldn't get defensive guys through the transfer portal? I mean, this guy won national championships as the DC at Clemson. What's happening there? So those are questions that have to be asked there. But we are so fortunate here at USC and what he's doing and the staff that he assembled. Sean Nua, defensive line coach, Alex Grinch, look at 4 of the games, 14, 14, 14, and 17 points given up. That's pretty remarkable. Yes, 14 to Rice, 14 to Washington State, 14 in Corvallis, and 17 to Fresno State. That's pretty remarkable for a team that was supposed to be offensively heavy.
Well, and everybody was saying if we can just get opponents to score 30 or 35 or less, we'll be fine because our offense will score over 40 every game.
Exactly.
Now, that hasn't happened every game, but neither has the 30, 35 by the opponent. So it's still wins, but it's always like they've never made it quite comfortable enough for us to just relax and enjoy it in the bag like way early. You've been nervous enough every game that every game feel like, they just slugged out another one. They toughed it out. It's like, man, I feel like we've been saying that 4 weeks in a row now, that they toughed it out. And that's the beauty of it, I think. The schedule is really built nicely to where each week it's been a slugfest. Each week's been a little rougher than the week before.
Each week is like, if you couldn't design it to be like that.
Exactly right.
Each week gives you a new wrinkle, a new thing to be ready for as we get ready down the season. You guys, hey, we've got Brandon from D4 Sports joining us. Brandon, first of all, guys, I want to give a shout out. Brandon, who has been a volunteer coach on for Greenville in Tennessee, is now actually officially been brought onto their defensive staff and has helped defensively coach them to the #1 ranked spot in the state of Tennessee. So can we give a huge Voice of College Football shout out to Brandon, D4 Sports, for not only being a huge, phenomenal part of our Voice of College Football community, but helping coach the #1 team in the state of Tennessee, and a devout Texas Longhorn. Beautiful job today.
No, thanks. Appreciate that.
Can you tell us the question that we have as the USC community, because we thought that OU DNA was something special that the Oklahoma people had. All we heard was about OU DNA, and now it appears that OU DNA is just really Texas DNA that's been put on your face.
Exactly.
Is that what's going on?
I can't think of a better way to put it there, Tony.
That's what I thought I saw today.
Oh man, yeah, it was a great game. I mean, you guys, this is the USC show, but I mean, you guys look great and continue to evolve every single week. And I know how vital Caleb Williams is to this offense, but Travis Dye, you got to give that man his due. He is
How great was he today? 149 yards.
Yeah, like I'm truly a fan of Travis Dye and the way he's running the ball right now. The flash with Caleb Williams, Mario and Jordan Addison, stuff like that. That's great. But this guy is just running like a beast.
Yep. He really is. He's earning those yards. And Brandon, I don't know if you've been following the team, but one of the things that Lincoln Riley's been talking extensively about is the leadership role that Travis Dye has played in bringing the leadership and the maturity to that team, into the locker room, and really helping this team get where it's going. Up his frag says Travis Dye MVP changed my mind. I'm not changing anybody's mind on that. He was great tonight, and has been phenomenal for the entire team. Travis Dye said something last week. Brandon, I don't know if you heard about this. Travis Dye in the post game said, we played well, but he said, we didn't have enough energy tonight, because he said, if we bring the energy tonight that we have to the rest of these games, we're not going to win. We need to up our energy. And tonight, I think he pretty much willed that energy up sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, at that position, I know he's been in college for a while now, but to bring that, kudos to Lincoln Riley and this coaching staff for bringing him into their system in their first year as a guy that's going to be vocal and step up and be that leader.
He really did. Hey, what'd you think of the defense tonight?
Looking better every week. I mean, every single week that USC defense is surprising me. And, I watch it every single week. You guys got me hooked on watching their games, and I do the preview and review of USC with Tim and LBC and Tony and everything. So I have a vested interest in it, and it's been a joy to watch the defense evolve every single week.
And if you guys aren't watching, Brandon at D4 Sports, Tim, can you put the link in the chat real quick, or somebody put the link in the chat? Brandon has an amazing channel that you guys really need to be following. In fact, one of the things that I told him is that we need to get him out there talking to more people, because Brandon calls these games. And again, this guy's coaching the #1 high school team in the state of Tennessee. He knows what he's talking about. And when he's previewed these games, the stuff that he says actually happens. Except for, what do you think of the Notre Dame win tonight? Because that affects USC.
I think that when it comes down to it, USC can outscore Notre Dame 10-1 as far as like offensive skill position, like all across the board. But defensively, they're stout. But I think USC has the edge still. I'm on the USC train.
I like it. Hey, guys, we got another special guest. We've got all-star guru, head of Trojans Wire, Matt Zemek, joining us. Real quick, Matt, Austin and Jeffrey, I'm going to move you guys real quick just to the back room, just so we have a little bit more space on here. Put a thing in the private chat if you want to rejoin. I'll bring you guys back in, just so we can make a little more room. Matt, what'd you think of the game tonight?
Well, been listening to the show, lots of great takeaways. So I don't want to repeat what you and Rick and Tim in particular have said. So my main insight is Kalen Bullock gets ejected. You're already playing without Shane Lee. Jordan Addison gets hurt for a little bit. Didn't have the ultimate burst on this particular night. Bodies were dropping. Attrition was mounting. 6 weeks into the season, a few teams across the country, they've already had their off week. Some teams have already had that cushion, being able to kind of regather, get healthy. USC's here in mid-October, hasn't had that chance. And so you could just, everyone worried, certainly, about, is this thing teetering? Is this thing going to collapse? Will that targeting call, which total BS, Bullock rocks him in the right shoulder. And the helmet did touch the Washington State receiver's helmet, but he didn't lead with the helmet. It certainly wasn't spearing. He rocks him on the shoulder. And he's 5'6". On the follow through, the helmet hits. Just, can we use any common sense? And hey, Washington State got dinged for targeting later, and I thought that was BS as well. Guys trying to make a play in pass protection. It's just not the intent of the rule. But, college football doesn't know how to implement it. We've been there, done that. But anyway, so Bullock gets out, and we saw what happens with Anthony Beavers right after getting ejected, and you think, this house of cards is going to fall. That just one injury at a key, or one absence, I should say, at a key spot is going to send this thing in a downward spiral. No, not on this team's watch, not under Alex Grinch, not under Lincoln Riley. This team's resilience is off the charts, and it's half a season, 6 games, and you have this kind of resolve, this kind of resourcefulness. It's absolutely spectacular, the cultural change that Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch have put in place at USC. All this attrition, all these bodies, flying onto the shelf, unavailable, and the next man up mentality emerges. Linebackers held the fort without Shane Lee. Raylan Goforth was great. And, of course, you have, obviously Thule was a beast. And he now probably is more of a defensive MVP than Eric Gentry. But really the second half of the season is going to decide that. So we don't really need to dice that one up too finely. But Thule was a beast. Solomon Byrd might be the most unsung hero on this defense. That, he's not going to get the pub with Thule being who and what he is, Mr. Reliable. But Solomon Byrd, you always see him make a critical play on a third down once or twice a game. Also, Tyrone Taleni, he was also very much in the mix. So that next man up, everyone making contributions. Special teams pinned Washington State inside its own 10 on multiple possessions. So when Washington State got a 41-yard gain on one of its drives, didn't lead to points because Washington State had a plus 90-yard field. Dennis Lynch kicks 3 field goals, which, hey, 16-point game, 9 points. Yeah, that really mattered. So everyone making contributions in what was really
and one of those field goals, Will Rose salvaged a terrible snap and got it into position for him.
Yep. Yeah, everyone making contributions. And this wasn't like the easy breezy Stanford game in week 2 where you get 5 TDs on your first 5 possessions without a third down. As people on the panel have been noting, there's been a little bit of nervousness, a little bit of unsettledness, in midway through these games. Is it all going to work out? And it's because it's year 1 under Lincoln Riley. We know that the best is yet to come in future seasons. So there isn't that automatic assuredness. I wrote this in one of my immediate post-game stories at Trojans Wire that, in 2005, you had the total belief during that season. Yep. We step into a pothole, we fall behind 21-3 at Arizona State in 100-degree weather. No problem. We got this. We We know what to do. We have the resources. We have the elite players. In year one under Lincoln Riley, there isn't that automatic total trust. Not quite yet that it's all going to work out in the end, but this team is building that trust. It's earning that trust. And that really is my takeaway. What a tough team just 6 games into the Lincoln Riley era. It's magnificent.
Yeah. And Matt, can you get over, like we were talking about this a little bit ago, like I don't think you could script a better preparation schedule for us. You know, we got, you know, the cakewalk game, we got pretty weak Stanford. Every week it gets harder, a little more tests. To just it's putting us big and perfect position for this great conflict we have this week. Just real quick, Matt, I know there's going to be a whole show you're going to have with Mark to preview this.
Sure.
And guys, that show is now. Is it Monday or Tuesday?
Monday at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific. Yes.
11
Monday
Eastern,
night,
8 Pacific,
Monday Night
guys.
Football at USC.
It's a phenomenal. Mark does a phenomenal job. Mark and Matt chat about USC. You should all be watching. Try to watch it live. If not, you know, catch the breakdown in the clips. We don't want to steal your thunder from that, but any quick initial thoughts on this big showdown in Salt Lake City coming up?
I'm not sure whether it was Tim or Rick on a previous Saturday postgame show here at the Voice of College Football, but either Tim or Rick, one of the two, mentioned that USC was playing with house money a few weeks ago. Well, against this in this Utah game, USC will be playing with house money, right? Because it's the game that everyone in the world expected USC to lose before the season started. And because USC has gone unbeaten up to now, and then on the back end of this Utah game, you have Arizona, Cal, Colorado. Like, those are 3 layups. I mean, Arizona is giving up 50 burgers left and right. That USC should move through that defense like a knife through warm butter, especially after getting a week off.
That's going to be so fun, isn't it?
I mean, so if USC, as we all assume it will, beats Arizona, Cal, and Colorado, pretty, you know, that those games should not be particularly close. If we assume that, USC can afford to lose this Utah game, and as long as you beat the Bruins in November, got the Pac-12 title game, got the chance to be 11-1 by beating Notre Dame. So, like, this is like a freebie. I mean, it really is. I mean, people might not like to think that way, but this game against Utah, it's a game that USC could lose without consequence, and that's the value of this Washington State game. Something I addressed during the week. If you lose to Washington State, then you have to win at Utah. But by beating Washington State, no, you don't have to win. It's not a must win. It would have been a must win if USC had lost this game or the Oregon State game. So USC is basically, I mean, you know, sports betting is a big deal. USC's basically won a free bet, or it's won a risk-free token, basically by being unbeaten up to this point. It can lose to Utah and still have everything to play for, and would still be very, very, very likely to be 9-1 overall, 7-1 in the Pac-12 heading into that UCLA game on November 19th with everything to play for. So basically beating Washington State, it has bought USC leverage. It has bought USC leeway and a cushion such that it can now go to Utah and play free. Like, pressure's all on the Utes, guys. It's not on USC, even though USC's unbeaten. I mean, it's people will say, well, USC has to preserve an unbeaten season. But really, Utah's on the ropes now. Utah has to run the table. Utah's out of the playoff, but like, if Utah wants to have any chance of being in the Pac-12 title game, has to beat USC. We'll also have to beat Oregon in November now, but Utah must win. Like, if Utah loses next week, it's a disaster for the Utes.
Well, and Mark, based on what we saw DTR do today to Oregon, I got to think Bo Nix is going to run wild on him.
Yeah, and of course it sets up Caleb Williams.
And not only based on what we saw DTR do and what we saw Anthony Richardson do a couple weeks ago. Like, I think Bo Nix is going to have a Utah party.
Yeah, but just to kind of reset once again, people might say, oh, unbeaten USC goes into Salt Lake City trying to defend its unbeaten record. No, USC is not really defending anything. Utah is trying to defend. Utah is trying to defend its Pac-12 title, and USC should go in there not careless. This doesn't mean like be lazy or be casual, but it just means we don't need to play with a burden. We can let it fly Go at them. Go get them. You know, let's just showcase our abilities. It's not, oh, we have to win this game at all costs. USC does not face that kind of pressure. Let's see if this liberates USC. Let the chips fall where they may. And hey, if you don't win, you still have everything to play for. The season's all lined up to be 9-1, entering the UCLA game with everything in front of them. So that's the value of beating Washington State. It took the pressure off for the Utah game. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens next week in Salt Lake.
And Matt, thanks, by the way, thanks for stopping by. I always love when you come by. But one thing we have to remember, the 2 losses have been where for the Utes? On the road. Mm-hmm. We all know the Utes are a whole different animal at home. And now they're a wounded animal at home.
Yep.
And now we're going there, a bunch of pissed off Utes. And we're going to walk in there, and that crowd's going to be angry. And you're like, right, they're backed into a corner. So now you got the whole their whole student section, there at Rice Eccles. And we're going to get walking into someone just walked and kicked that hornet's nest, and we're coming around the corner, walking right into it. So I hope that we keep the juice we have going. We did seem like we kind of slowed down when we were up in Corvallis. So I'm hoping we come in there and we're firing all cylinders and we're nice and healthy. It'll be interesting to see this week. We don't get a lot. I know we don't get a lot of information on injuries, but I really want to hear how we're going into next week.
Jeffrey, I think Gixxer Squid's trying to get you in that Ole Miss hat.
Hey, Tim, I agree with your point.
I give him that.
He's the best.
Tim,
Go ahead, Rick. Sorry.
Tim, I agree with your point that the Utes are going to be pissed, and it's going to be a hostile environment. But the great thing is USC had that test a couple weeks ago up in Corvallis with a bunch of loud, unwelcoming, I think is a PC word or PC phrase to use. And so, hey, we've had that test. This team has been tested. That's what's beautiful about it. And again, the defense tonight stepped up, 5 sacks, 9 more tackles for loss. So we are already in the top 5 for sacks, and we are in the top 20 for TFLs. So that number is going to grow. So situational awareness at critical times, this defense is cashing in and it's executing. And I think, it's a beautiful thing. Tyrone Taleni had a sack in the second half. It was like, wow, this guy again gets another sack. And it was fantastic. And this is a game, the first game that we won without any turnovers. So that narrative, well, hey, USC's lucky. They wouldn't have won because these turnovers aren't going to happen every time. You're right. Those turnovers didn't happen every time, but we still got 9 TFLs, and we got 5 sacks without Shane Lee patrolling the middle. So there you go. And without Kalen Bullock because of a Pac-12 missed call. So
I like your moxie, Rick, but I have to stop you. This secondary at Utah we're going to play are a lot better. And again, Rice Eccles, Corvallis, I know we have our Oregon State fans. Corvallis is not Rice Eccles. I'm just saying I really think that we were tested there. They had half a stadium, right? They had some very vile fans as well. I get that. But this going up there, playing at altitude, all the things that goes into the loud stadium and all we just talked about how they're backed into a corner. And what really worries me is I believe they have at least 1, if not 2 NFL corners up there. So, I mean, I'm really, really worried about what's going on when we go to Utah. That's all.
They will. I love Darius's point here, guys, about Travis Dye, who played for Oregon last year, has some revenge on his mind.
That's right.
That's a good point.
That's right. And here's the thing.
If there's anyone, you guys who watch the Reign of Troy show, I love, she calls him My Guy Dye. So I agree with her. My Guy Dye is exactly who I want with revenge on his mind.
Tim, I agree with you.
To be fair, half Reeser ain't Rice Eccles. That's very true. Even if they're pumping in illegal crowd noise.
Tim, I agree with you 100% with respect to Rice Eccles. And it's a different Utah team. But you got to understand one thing now. We played 6 games. USC's played 6 games, and we've won a different way each time. This coaching staff is elite, okay? They know the opportunity that's in front of us. This is a kill shot. Okay. And we're suffering from that other coaching staff PTSD. Fans are. The fans that are sitting around me are suffering too. Because, I mean, the guy said to me, oh, we're dropping passes. I said, hey, Mario's going to take care of it. Don't worry. And he gets the touchdown like 30 seconds later. But that's PTSD. I get it. We all suffer. Andy, you suffer from it, right?
Of course.
We all suffer from it.
This is the kill shot. This
Rick, I still suffer from Paul Hackett PTSD.
This elite coaching staff sees what's on the table. We are going to take out Utah, and they're going to be done. And then we move on, like Tony said, like a hot knife through butter with these other three teams, and then we get what we want. And UCLA is going to get what they want, right? Because we're going to fill the freaking Rose Bowl with our fans, and that's the first time they're going to make money in the Rose Bowl this year. And we're going to take out UCLA, and then we're going to play the Irish. So we control our destiny. We don't have to worry about the last 5 years and, I don't know about this. No, it's in our hands. Okay. And this is a team.
I got you, Rick.
One really
important
point to make on in terms of what Rick says, and it's exactly how Lincoln Riley needs to be talking to his team this next week. I mean, the words kill shot, like it's an opportunity. Like we can drive the stake into the ground. We knock out the Utes, and we basically secure a spot in the Pac-12 title game. If USC beats Utah, that's what it will do. So you frame this as an opportunity, not a burden. I see it. I've covered sports as a writer for 20 years, and when athletes look at something as an opportunity, they flourish. When athletes look at something as something they have to protect or something they have to defend, you're in a posture of protection, being cautious, being reserved. You have something to lose. That's when performance suffers. But an opportunity, something to reach out and grab, something you can claim, something you can take aggressively, that frees people up. So that reinforces the notion that the pressure's all on Utah. USC can be free. And that is exactly how this coaching staff needs to sell this game. I think, when we compare Corvallis with Salt Lake City, yes, Rice Eccles is a tougher environment, but the obvious thing that USC can bring into Salt Lake City is learning from the Corvallis experience, when I think Caleb Williams and the offense definitely played like a unit that felt it had something to protect, something to defend, that it had something to lose, and it was worried about losing it rather than playing freely. Now, obviously there were some offensive line injuries, and the offense wasn't as evolved in terms of dealing with injuries at that point in the season. That's part of it, but still, it felt like a team that was worried it would lose something, the offense did. And so going into Utah, we don't have to have that mentality. This is an opportunity for that kill shot, as Rick explained.
Yeah, if they can get their heads in the right spot, that's exactly what's going to happen. To Tim's point, first of all, the road has not been kind to Pac-12 teams this year. It's only us, USC, and I think Oregon that don't have a road loss to date. But it's the bipolar story as a fan of this entire year. I want to come in with confidence, a la Rick, and then I do the reality check, a la Tim, and I go, yeah, but this might be our first loss. And part of that is just me bringing my expectations back down to earth. Part of it is seeing holes. Part of it is this lack of 4 quarters of consistency. I've not yet seen all of it strung together. Either Caleb's down and the defense shows up, or the defense, lets off a little, but offense is on the gas. They've found a way to win, which I think, by the way, has learned them taught them massive lessons. They've grown from every single one of these eked out moments, and they're building on it. But every week it's all anew. It's all fresh heading into Utah. UCLA will be the same way. Yeah, but I want to be really confident, but I'm really nervous, but I'm really excited, but I'm not sure. And we do this schizophrenic thing as fans, which is what makes USC football so freaking amazing this year, that we're all talking about it instead of crying.
And Andy, let me bring those expectations back up to you. I'm not sure, because I was cutting in and out. The fact that, again, we shut them out in the second half. We literally shut them out. So that means that third quarter streak that they have going, and obviously we know, talk about Rick said, we do have elite coaching, which is so nice.
Yep.
That make that big word adjustments, that disappeared from the USC lexicon for about 5-6 years. That we come in and we're shutting teams out in the second half, like another really good coach we had about 15 years ago was doing all the time. And if we continue to show up in the second half and shut down, we see it, and then they give us, we're getting everyone's best shot, and they're saving the secret sauce for us. But the fact that we are starting those second halves out on a high note and shutting teams out, what is it now? Does anyone know the number? I know we've given up 7 points in the third quarter all season.
62-7 in third quarters.
That's just amazing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That is how you win. That my dad always told me about going into the end of the first half and how you start the second half. You get a little bookend right there. You have to do it. And the better part of it is we're shutting people out in that second half. So that's where you can bring, those expectations, Andy, right back up again. I do not want to be the bearer of doom. I'm just reminding everybody we're going into Rice Eccles, and it's going to be a fight.
Yep.
It's going to be a rock fight.
Fear on the players' minds too, by the way. I want the players playing with that fear. Both what was just said about the expectation. I hope the coach is putting that opportunity in their heads, but I hope they've got a little bit of fear. I don't want them walking in there cocky, or they could be caught way off guard.
I agree completely. Hey, do you guys want to real quick? Should we breeze through the conference today? Get your guys' takes on it?
Can I say one more thing about USC real quick before we do that?
Sure.
I think coming into this season, what makes USC so interesting is because coming into the season, Mark Rogers, and myself and a lot of people, we're looking at, obviously you get Lincoln Riley and you get all the offensive players, in the transfer portal, and you got some defensive players in the transfer portal as well. But everybody thought that the defense was going to struggle, obviously way worse than the offense. And as everybody's been pointing out, the defense has saved them in all these games, a lot of these games they've played, especially the Oregon State game. And to me, that is what's going to give USC a good chance to potentially run the table, maybe win all the games this season in the regular season, and maybe, I don't know about in the playoff, but that's why USC is a better team, because Oklahoma, when Lincoln Riley was at Oklahoma, their defense was never good, and that's why even though they won all their Big 12 games and they made the playoff, they would always get blown out. But USC is a good team this year, even a great team, because both sides of the ball are good. And you can't say that the defense is going to lose you games, and the offense, even though I think at times that their offense maybe is a bit underwhelming considering what we thought coming in, that the offense was going to be able to put up maybe 40, 50 points. But the defense is saving them games. They're a much more balanced team than I thought they were going to be, and that's why USC is doing as well as they are.
I think you're right. As usual, this is why you guys all need to follow Only Talk Sports with Jeffrey. We'll put the link in the chat again, because Jeffrey does this every single day on his channel, and he nails these circumstances again better than the guys on ESPN.
Thank you.
Real quick, guys, question for you is, thinking about USC and the UCLA game as well, is there anything that ticks off the rest of our Pac-12 friends more than the fact that the LA defector schools are undefeated right now?
Right.
It's kind of glorious, isn't it?
It says it all, really.
It really does. Guys, we've hit on this game. I just want to quick hit through these and tell me, just, you guys, any thoughts, takeaways on things impacting USC. So most of you guys were not with us earlier. We did talk briefly about Arizona and Washington, Arizona State, and I just want to give props to Sean Aguano. He is one of the most legendary coaches in Arizona high school history. He took over. We talked about this on the Pac-12 show. I was a little nervous before the Arizona State game. We talked about it afterwards. He had, in just a matter of days, rebuilt the mindset of Arizona State as only a great coach can. And he just coached that team to their first FBS win this week. They pretty much stomped on Washington most of the game, and he got Arizona State a win. And I just want to give huge shout outs to Sean Aguano and Sun Devils fans. Nice win. I think I have an ex somewhere that's sobbing in Europe, I'm sure, probably after this loss. What do you guys think, real quick, about Sun Devils looking pretty decent today?
They did it with a backup quarterback. That's the amazing thing, that Emory Jones went down and the backup comes in and just lights up UW like a Christmas tree. So, and Washington hasn't won in Tempe since 2001. That just kills me. In 2017, Washington went to the Fiesta Bowl. That was a really good team. lost to Arizona State. Like the Tempe curse is real for the Washington Huskies.
It is. That's okay. Notre Dame, BYU, guys, this one affects us in a big way. I think this is a pretty pedestrian, pretty mid BYU team, and Notre Dame looks solid, but not scary.
Real quick, sorry I go back, but real quick on the Washington game. I think what's interesting about this game is the fact that Washington's defense is usually better than this. And I'm actually really surprised that they gave up 45 points. And obviously, you know, as you've said, that the curse of Tempe is real. They haven't won there in 20 years. And trust me, I know, because I watch Indiana basketball and they haven't won at Wisconsin since 1998. So I know all about stuff like that. But, man, I thought Washington would win. I said it on Wednesday night, and I can't believe they gave up 45 points because Washington put up 38, but it wasn't enough. So that was a crazy loss there. I was not expecting that, but that's all I got.
And just one more thing on Washington. Jimmy Lake would be a great defensive coordinator for Washington. They should hire him.
Yeah, except he'll slug the players.
Well, he doesn't need to be a head coach. Just make him defensive coordinator again.
Up in the box where he's out of swinging reach.
Exactly.
It'd be like Hannibal Lecter. Jimmy Lake is kept behind like a glass wall, so he can't punch anybody. All right, guys. I thought this game today, it looked, as I watched this, I thought that's a Notre Dame team we're going to beat.
Yes. That was a pillow fight game, right? That was just a game where, two teams just don't play with a whole lot of force. They don't, nothing looks overwhelming or imposing. And you see plenty of games throughout the season that have that kind of vibe. That was certainly one of them.
And I want to give a shout out to guys like Jeffrey and D4 and Austin and everybody that joins our show, because one of the things that we try to do with this show and with the Pac-12 show is to make sure that we're surveying the overall landscape of the sport. And we want your opinions on USC and the Pac-12 from all kinds of different people. And the reason for that is that I've spent this whole week listening to every nitwit in the Big 12 just think BYU was going to roll over this because they live in this idiotic Provo echo chamber of silliness. And I thought that made absolutely no sense. Vegas thought that made absolutely no sense. And when I think it makes no sense and Vegas thinks it makes no sense, it typically makes no sense. And that's exactly what we saw was, Notre Dame run a very middling pedestrian BYU team off the field. So, we want to be sure we're not getting into echo chambers. And that's to those of you guys who are wondering, why do we have folks that are from other teams? That because we want to see that holistic picture and not be like those idiotic fans that thought that BYU was going to run away with this thing.
That's
real quick, anything
point.
else on Notre Dame?
Yeah, that's a great
Sorry,
point. I didn't see the game because I was obviously at the USC game, but summarize it. You said it was a pillow fight. Was it that?
Well, Notre Dame was up pretty solidly. Notre Dame was up pretty solidly for most of the game, and then BYU came back right at the end. Came back, scored a little bit. Will called me. Will called me actually. You guys know Will ND, who one of our contributors, a phenomenal guy, calls me while on some live stream he was on. He's like, "I'm really nervous." But sure enough, Notre Dame held on. I thought Notre Dame was definitely the better team, and I don't think Drew Pine's going to be beating Caleb Williams.
Exactly. But Rick, in terms of the pillow fight dynamic, when I talk about a game like that, I'm talking about teams not playing with tremendous force, like just no one looks imposing. It's 20. You can find a million different 28-20 games. Some games are 28-20, and you see athletes flying all over the field. Other games it's 28-20 because neither team can kind of pull away or just fully assert itself and take total command. And that's that. My sense is that. I looked at portions of the game while, during commercials for the USC game, and that was the takeaway I got. And, BYU has been struggling, got blown out by Oregon, didn't look great at all against Utah State. And, so the Cougars have still played at that pretty ordinary level, and Notre Dame allows 20 points to that team and allows the game to still be undecided heading into the last several minutes. So yeah, that's what I regard as a pillow fight, when just The amount of force and the amount of imposing, overwhelming quality just isn't there from two teams, and a game stays close because it's mediocre rather than because it's really good.
I picked Notre Dame to win when I made my video. I kind of, I guess you could say maybe did it for Will too, because Will wanted me to do a preview on it the other night. And I was like, man, I kept looking at this game, and I agree exactly what you just said about how that BYU has not looked that great. I know they beat Baylor, but obviously Baylor's kind of not looking maybe as good as people thought. And then obviously BYU lost to Oregon. That woke my eyes up because I thought that game was going to be a lot closer. Maybe, BYU could win or be a close loss or whatever, but they got bludgeoned in that game. And then they've been struggling against Wyoming, Utah State, and then obviously Notre Dame. They started out 0-2, but they've started to their trajectory was going up. I literally said these exact words in my video. Their trajectory was going up, whereas BYU's to me was going down. So I picked Notre Dame for all those reasons. I wasn't confident in it, but Notre Dame did get the win. But like you guys have been saying, I definitely think USC can beat Notre Dame the way Notre Dame's playing right now, unless Notre Dame's going to have to improve a lot, or USC is going to have to play really, really bad for Notre Dame to beat USC.
I think you're right. I mean, of course, anything Notre Dame USC games, anything can happen.
One thing about that USC game, I would certainly like to think that you're going to get 77,500 in the Coliseum for that one. Only like 63 and change tonight for Washington State. I'm waiting for like the Pete Carroll era 2.0 to show up when you could count on 90,000 in the Coliseum. Don't know what people are waiting for. Maybe it's for that Notre Dame game, but certainly hope that the Collie is going to be filled for that one.
Matt, one issue with that is I think LA has just the football fans, right? We know we're a transplant city and we got tons of people from all over the place. And I think when Pete was here, we didn't have two NFL teams here in Los Angeles. And now we do. And I think some of those fans that were just want to watch good football, they were coming to those Pete Carroll years because it was great football. It was amazing. And I'm wondering what it's going to take to get someone. And when they're winning Super Bowls across town, it's kind of hard to grab those fans back. So I'm hoping, and then there should be enough of us out there. I think I really am disappointed. And every time I go there and I look around and I see all those empty seats, I just shake my head because I don't know what there's a lot of Trojan fans. There's more than 50,000 Trojan fans out there. I know that we have about 50,000 core fans that show up to almost anything SC, right? But I'm just wondering where the rest of them are. Because we do have those fans that are big fans, but we need to get them off their couches and their big screens and get them out to the Coliseum.
Well, you bring up a good point, Tim, and it's about economics if you look at it. Look at the teams that were not here in LA when the Pete Carroll days were happening. The sports arena used to be right in the parking lot. I used to tailgate there before they started charging me $500 the tailgate now, so I can't tailgate. But now it's the Bank of California. So you have 18 to 20 soccer games that are played at the Bank of California. So do the math on that. Do the math on 17 home games between the Chargers and Rams. You've got 1.5 million extra tickets that are in the entertainment economic sphere that weren't here before. So when USC was down, guess what? A lot of fans went and bought season tickets for the Rams. The ones that couldn't buy season tickets for the Rams because they're so expensive, they bought the less expensive ones for the Chargers. I know that because I have 4 friends that have Chargers season tickets that are Trojans because it's a business. It's an entertainment capital. And USC finally figured it out because they hired Lincoln Riley. They paid money to stay in the game and stay relevant. I'm not even bringing up the Lakers or the Dodgers. I'm just bringing in the new NFL and LAFC. So it's an economic situation. And it's going to take time to bring those fans back. That's all.
I think you're right. Real quick, guys, moving on from Notre Dame. We're going to be playing Arizona. Jed Fish has Arizona looking much, much better than they have in years. But Oregon still gave them a beatdown. Now, Oregon has a similar sort of desert curse as Washington. It's kind of funny because Washington and Oregon are both terrified of the desert. Maybe they don't get enough rain. But Oregon laid a beatdown on Arizona 49-22. I think that this just sort of reminds us that as long as we, avoid calamity, the Arizona game should be pretty solid win. What do you guys think?
One second. Hold on one second, because Roger Dodger has a great point, and I kind of alluded to it. He said, in addition, USC is also completely messed up the tailgating situation at the Coliseum. It's true. Tim Prangley, you know this because you've been going to games for I don't know how many consecutive games for 20 years.
Yeah.
So I am in lot 6, or now they call it the green lot, but I'm right there south of the Bank of California, and I've been a season ticket holder for 18 years. And 2 years ago, they said, okay, you used to pop up right there in our car. We'd have right out there. You put it, your pop up. Everybody would tailgate there in that lot, and all around there. Now they're charging you $500 if you want to tailgate, and they're going to put you in the corner over on Hoover and Figueroa. So they've taken a lot of that out from the season ticket holders. If you tailgate on campus at USC, you have to pay a permit to tailgate. So Roger Dodger brings up a great point. There's some fans that are just like, you know what? They need to change this. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to pay for my season tickets and then $500 to tailgate when I used to pay nothing. It's ridiculous. So we're real on this show, and we're going to let you know.
That's a pretty big point. Didn't know that. So it's good information.
Yeah. And that's a very real issue that, certainly you guys, if you guys have reasonable, smart recommendations for tailgating, I would say reach out to the athletic department, because Sam, who's I think she's the chief of staff now, reach out to Sam, because that's something that you should definitely get addressed. I used to sit on the game management committee. I was in undergrad, not recently, obviously. But on that committee, we were always looking for ways to improve the fan experience. So I would say, don't shout about it. Obviously talk about it with us, but don't let it just die with us. Send you guys who are in the chat, and you guys who are season ticket holders, send your recommendations to the athletic department, because effect change. And if you don't ask, it doesn't happen. So I would say definitely push for that. But on Arizona, do you guys see any threat from the Arizona game?
We got to call them the Arizona Wildcats, WILCATS, because there's definitely no D.
Yeah, and we've had some great comments. Chris is reminding us Arizona can't stop the run against anyone. Arizona's Swiss cheese against the run. Oregon had 300 today. Odd had 275. Colorado averaged 5 a carry. You guys, this might be a fun one to watch.
And USC has the week off before the trip to Tucson, so getting that O-line healthy, just all lines up just right for the Trojans there.
Hopefully it'll be a good, fun game for our guys. And if anybody's looking to make the trip, that might be a fun one to go check out.
I think Travis might be dynamite against the Cats.
Moving on from that, right now, actually, this game is up now. It's 17-7. Or actually, real quick, I want to reflect on Oregon for a minute. So USC doesn't play Oregon and won't play Oregon unless we're both in the championship game. I think Oregon continues to look good week after week. What do you guys think about UCLA Oregon coming up?
Both teams will be coming off an off week, so they both get 2 weeks to prepare. And Chip Kelly returns to Eugene looking a lot more like the coach from a decade ago, and I wasn't expecting that this year. I have to admit, I undersold the Bruins. I can admit it. But so Chip Kelly doesn't just go back to Eugene; he goes there, riding a wave, and that's going to be some kind of ball game. I really can't wait for it. I
will say, going back to your point about fans going into USC and everything. I think that, like you're talking about with the NFL stadiums and all that, I think that other schools obviously have that problem as well, like Houston, and obviously USC is a bigger brand and have a lot more fans, but like Houston football and SMU. I mean, when you're in cities that have the NFL, it's going to teams in, it's going to draw more fans for that, because I watched one of the Houston games recently, and it was like half full, and it's like, again, you would think it would have more fans, but again, when you're in an NFL town or city like that, you're not going to draw as many. And like you said about USC struggling for a while, I think that hurts too. But my thoughts on Oregon, UCLA, I think it's going to be a fantastic game. Definitely, I like the fact the Pac-12 has great games again. You have all these games. You got Utah, USC, Oregon, UCLA. Washington's been better. All these teams, it's like you have so much more intrigue and so much more to talk about versus being like, can they make the playoff? I mean, we're not even talking about that right now because there's still so many teams that can. We're talking about all these great games that are going on right now. And to me, that's fantastic for the Pac-12, because people before were just talking about, oh, the Pac-12's the worst conference. And now we're talking about all these high-profile games and how they're going to matter and how it's all going to shake out for the playoff. And I think that is really good for the conference. And on USC, Arizona, I don't think is going to have any chance to hang with USC unless USC plays awful in the game, because like people are saying, Arizona's better, but to say that like they're really improved it's not true, because Arizona's still struggling. They're just better than they were when they were 1-11, and obviously they lost like 20 games from that, but they still got a long way to go before they're going to be good.
Yeah, they definitely do. But, you know, I think you're right. I think it's really good to see them being back. Mm-hmm. And good for the conference. I mean, this is the conference that we all know. This is the conference that we all lived with for decades. There's a reason they call it the Conference of Champions. I thought it was interesting. There was a statistic I saw, our Pac-12 rankings. We'll see how it is this week. Probably even better this week. We're the best that they had been since 2016 for the conference as a whole. Now, last year was the worst they had been since 1946. Mm-hmm. You know, when we were still playing teams like Orange County Naval Air Training, and you know, losing to those teams. Those, by the way, if you guys look, those are like the real names of like teams that we were playing in the 45, 46 era. So you know what? So yeah, St. Mary's. You know, again, they were all, you know, Pomona Navy Seabees, you know, things like that. We were really playing teams like that in those days. So it's not since then that we had as bad a year as we had last year. And, you know, certainly that went to the head of all of the SEC drivel artists. We, you know, have lots of people, we used to wax the floor with a lot of those teams. And they're back to that. And so I think it's pretty exciting. I think UCLA, we were a little worried, you know, Utah went into Florida. We know Utah doesn't play as well on the road, but, you know, Utah was the better team against Florida. Well, UCLA whacked Utah today. You know, the game ended up a little closer in the end, but UCLA pretty much controlled that game. So we're seeing, it looks like right now. Sorry, Austin, go ahead.
To touch on Oregon real quick. Yeah. Man, what a turnaround they have made. I mean, from the first week of the season when they played arguably the best team in Georgia and getting smacked 49-3, everyone jumping off their bandwagon, saying Oregon's no good, this team is atrocious, and here they are, they're putting some wins together, and they're getting back on the right track again.
Yeah, and they're going to be the top 10 team this week.
And what a great coaching job that is, to be able to keep the guys on course and just shake that beating off, so to speak. I mean, that says something about the culture that Oregon has built there.
Austin, I think you hit it. I think you hit it spot on the head right there. That's a great point, Austin, because you're right. I mean, Oregon, that they could have lost their whole season. Instead, they've salvaged it and they get better and better. And when you guys think about it, we talked about this on the Pac-12 show week 1. That was Dan Lanning's first game as a head coach. And you can say what you want, but your first game as a head coach is a little bit tough against his old team with a whole new offense. Bo Nix, whole new players on their team, whole new offense, whole new defense, whole new everything. They went into Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which, arguably worse than going into more rabid Georgia fans there probably than actually at Sanford Stadium. And they got whacked by the defending national champions. And it was right for them to be whacked, and here they've turned it around. And you're right, Austin. They're looking strong and doing the team and the legacy of the team proud.
I don't like the fact that you have, in my opinion, even though I know that why they do it is for, get people interested at the beginning of the football season. I don't like how you have these big games in week one. Like I said it on one of the shows a while back, how I said Utah playing at Florida should not have been in week one. That hurt Utah. And then you've got, like you said, Oregon playing Georgia on a neutral site that's not a neutral site. And in week one, and like you said, it was Dan Lanning's first game as head coach. Again, if Oregon played Georgia now, I still obviously wouldn't pick Oregon to win, but the game would be obviously probably at least more competitive because of the fact, you're further into the season. Your guys are more, you have cohesiveness as a team on both sides of the ball. And obviously Oregon did not have that in week one with the first game with the new head coach. And you got all these players and all that you're trying to get accustomed to. And it's just, to me, not good to have those games in week one. Obviously they're going to do it, and people overreact to week one stuff anyway, week one games. Like you said, Oregon getting waxed by Georgia, and then you go back around and Oregon's played fantastic since. A lot of people are like, oh, Oregon's one of the worst, powerful. It's like, obviously some people are ridiculous in their statements anyway, but Oregon, people shouldn't, write off a team after one bad loss. Oregon's been great since. And again, I think if Oregon played Georgia now, it'd be a much better game.
Yeah, I think you're right. And Gixxer Squid points out that, USC football's role in our national brand supporting enrollment. Yeah, it's very true. And supporting fundraising. I used to work a lot with fundraising at USC, and the football games are where the billionaires come and mingle among each other and then write very big checks. And there's a reason that it's important for the school. And it's not just because we all love the game, but it plays a very, very important role in the university overall. And actually, Oregon State has kicked a field goal since I last updated the score. Are you guys surprised at all right now? Stanford, the folks on the farm are actually looking like they got a good chance to win a game right now. Third quarter, it's 17-10, Stanford leading.
So, I didn't see it, thank God, but, Iowa lost to Illinois 9-6. Oh. And there are so many of these teams where
I would have split my wrist if I had to see it.
There's so many teams where great defense, really good roster, and what are they missing? Quarterback, and that's Oregon State. So Oregon State is the Pac-12's ultimate example of the team that has everything but the quarterback. And Jonathan Smith, a former quarterback himself, that's the thing he needs to solve. But there are several examples.
Killing him, actually.
There are several examples across the country. Iowa obviously stands out as one. There are several others. Everything but the quarterback. It's really,
I think, Matt,
really agonizing for those fan bases.
Matt, I think all the fans in the Pac-12 need to thank West Virginia for taking JT Daniels, because if he'd gone to Oregon State, I think that would have been a whole different monster.
Can you guys imagine if Oregon State had JT Daniels?
Oh my God. That's a great point. Wow. Yep. That's a great point.
What happened?
Tim, that is a brilliant point.
So
what happened to Chance Nolan?
Stationery out, everybody, and send Neil Brown a nice thank you card.
Yeah.
Thank you for keeping JT out of the Pac-12.
Hey,
all hail Neil Brown.
What's also amazing in terms of surveying the national landscape, Kansas has two quality quarterbacks. Jalen Daniels goes down, the backup plays well. Kansas's overall quarterback room, I'm not talking about the starter only, but the whole quarterback room, Kansas has a better quarterback room than Oklahoma does. It's crazy.
Although when Daniels went down, I thought that game was, there it goes. The game's over right now at this moment. I didn't think that guys would come in and lead them right down the field and score a touchdown. Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Jason Bean, he did start for Kansas last year, so that helped with the experience on that. So that I think that obviously helped there. But I was gonna try to ask. I wasn't trying to interrupt. Sorry, but what happened to Chance Nolan for Oregon State? Because you're saying that Oregon State doesn't have a quarterback. He was good before.
Yeah, he had a neck injury.
But
it's hurt right now.
I mean, if he's not playing well, obviously, I mean, because of the injury, I guess he shouldn't be playing. But I don't know. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, you're talking about Iowa, and again, we're talking Pac-12 here, but Iowa, I don't think Spencer Petras is not a great quarterback. I agree with that. But Brian Ferentz, Kirk Ferentz's son, cannot coach offense. He was a good tight ends coach, but he can't coach offense, and that's why they stink, because there's no scheme going on. They're playing offense like it's 1920. It's not the fact that Spencer Petras is terrible. I mean, he's not great, but he's not terrible. They could get it done, but it's just terribly run offense by Kirk Ferentz's son, in which you won't get, move him back to tight ends coach or whatever, because, it's his son, I guess. But that's why they sting, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. But on Oregon State, I saw that Chance Nolan was hurt, but I didn't know how bad it was. But I think, obviously when he was healthy, he was really good. So I mean, maybe he'll get better. So I don't know.
But he threw 4 picks. He threw 4 picks against USC before his injury.
But he was good last year, though. I mean, he was good last year.
He was solid. He was solid, but like the Oregon State also had better running backs last year and didn't ask Nolan to do quite as much in 2021.
Yep.
What happened to Oregon State? I mean, they played so well against USC, and then last week they get slapped by Utah, and now to Stanford, they're not showing up. What happened?
When they leave Corvallis, they turn into a pumpkin. They got hammered by Cal and Berkeley last year.
Because they gave USC the best game they
past
could.
2 weeks. Kind of like Washington the past 2 weeks, too, on the road.
My goodness.
The Mariners are the only good road team in the Pacific Northwest right now.
Yeah. You know what, though? I want to give a shout-out to the Cougs, because I think the Cougs are a pretty good road team. I thought they played great at Wisconsin, and I thought the Cougs played really well tonight.
They fought well, but they didn't execute well. 11 penalties and a lot of loose edges, but they certainly fought well. Like, this was a physical challenge for USC all 60 minutes, and that definitely came across.
Tim, what was your impression of Washington State's size compared to previous Washington State teams that you've seen? I thought there's a lot of big dudes on the team.
Yeah. Their linebackers seem a bit big. That one guy, 10, was rangy. Who was he? That guy was a force. I don't know. I mean, they did appear bigger, but I didn't really notice it, to be honest.
Their offensive line seemed pretty big.
Yeah. Well, you know who's the offensive line coach up there?
Oh, it's McGuire.
Yeah.
Clay McGuire.
Our guy McGuire, who actually started this turnaround. I mean, I don't think we'd be here with this offensive line. These guys, I don't think we'd be singing their praises if he hadn't started all this last year. He was the one shining hope last year that I was like, wow, this offensive line is like the shining unit on this team that's really a hot mess. So, hats off to McGuire for getting this thing rolling.
Well, I don't know if you guys saw when he came out on the field, a bunch of the USC players ran up and immediately gave him hugs and shook hands, and it was a powerful moment for a lot of our players.
Wow, Tony, if you can dig up a clip of that would be great. Like on Twitter,
Chris Trevino posted one.
Oh, okay,
cool.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah, Chris
That's
Trevino
another
posted
guy. All you Trojan fans out there, if you're not following Chris Trevino, especially on Twitter at the very least, if not his work on USCFootball.com, I think you're crazy. I'll leave that one too out there.
So thanks for pointing that out. Really appreciate that.
Man, Travis Dye, he is a stud. I mean, when he gets around that corners, he's got speed like I have never seen before. Man, he can fly sometimes.
And he's also money in the bank on 3rd and short. And how many times did USC suffer under Clay Helton by not being able to get 2 yards on 3rd and 1? Travis Dye is cash money.
He's that proverbial, right? You can't tackle him in a phone booth. Some of those holes, it wasn't there, and he would just find a way to get that yard or 2 yards, and it's amazing to watch him go.
We have an update. Stanford scored again. It's now 24-14. Stanford's winning on the farm. And does anybody have a look? I haven't seen the new tree. Apparently, what is it? Roger Dodger said he thinks it's designed off the new space telescope. I can't wait to see this. I don't know if you guys saw Robert Griffin III was performing with the Stanford band today too. So that was kind of an entertaining thing to see. If you guys haven't seen it, that's all over Twitter as well. So 24-10 is the score. Thanks, Chris.
I think that game is over.
Just around the corner of my eye.
That's over.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like the Oregon State win won't be much of quality if they keep this up.
That's okay.
But it matters in the standings. Like, because they beat Oregon State, then Utah is not a win at all costs game. And USC.
Well, and I think we sort of spoiled Oregon State. We have a lot of awesome, fun Oregon State fans in the chat. And guys, tell me if this is true or not. I think we kind of broke their season a little bit. I think that was a hard loss for them.
No doubt.
Well, I think it was for a few different reasons. They were in that game the whole time, and they knew going in that they've crushed USC's dreams and hopes from some very good teams. Number 1 and number 3, I believe, with Pete Carroll in 06 and 08. And you go all the way back to 19. But
LBC, you're cutting out. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Thing is that Chance Nolan kind of, and nobody Chance Nolan.
Oh, LBC, you keep cutting out. LBC, try exit the room and come back in the room. See if that helps. If Connor's in the chat, actually Connor's probably not in the chat. Connor's probably watching the game. Connor, good luck to you. Connor's certainly a good friend of the show. So guys, looking forward to this week. What are your thoughts? Just kind of go down the list. We've hit on this a little bit already. But what are our concerns going into the Utah game?
Health.
What worries us? Health.
Need the full complement of bodies. That's the main thing.
Health can sometimes win or lose you a ball game.
Sorry, Austin. What'd you say, Austin? Go ahead.
I said health can sometimes win or lose you a ball game, especially if it's on the offensive line, and you got a team like Utah who likes to be physical and likes to blitz. That could be trouble because Caleb Williams will have to run around a lot more than he would like to.
Yeah, well, one thing that's concerning to me as well was the way it just seemed like over and over again they were able to get outside. They were running off tackle. There's that quick little hitter they kept getting. They did most of them were on the left side, and then they did one to the right towards the end. They pick up like 30-40 yards. There's nobody there. Again, I still it's hard to get on this team. They only gave 104. I can't remember 140 yards rushing that they gave up. I can't remember what the number was. But it just seems like there's a lot. It just seems like, and we talked about I'm not gonna beat a dead horse. We talked about the one gap defenses are really feast or famine, and I just worry about when we play Utah, these guys might house it. So I'm really worried about our run defense at times, because we're going to need to go in there and we're really going to need to be sound, gap sound in that game, and we're getting better. We clearly are. But and it's hard to argue with a team that only gave up 14 points. I just think that we're talking a whole different level of team when we play Utah. That's a big concern. And the biggest thing also is their secondary. I hope that we, and Caleb can be patient with the run game, because I think that, again, Utah's secondary is going to test us, I believe.
I think that in this game against USC playing Utah, I think that, you talked about how Travis Dye is a stud, and he is, and that might have, maybe been, besides Caleb Williams, the most important transfer that USC got, in my opinion, even over Jordan Addison, because USC, if they could not run the football, would not be as good of a team either. The defense is helping them out with the run game, because Caleb Williams, I'm looking at the stats, because again, I didn't get to see hardly any of the game because I was watching Alabama the whole time, but you had Caleb Williams only threw for like 188 yards, but Travis Dye got a lot of yards, on the ground. And you have UCLA in this game against Utah, Zach Charbonnet had 198 yards on the ground. So obviously Utah gives up yards on the ground. So Travis Dye is going to be really important in the game against Utah. And even though, obviously, as Tim points out, that Rice-Eccles is a tough place to play and that Utah plays better there, defense travels on the road, and the running game can travel on the road. And I think that those two things, if USC can run the ball against Utah and their defense plays like they did against Oregon State, then I think USC will beat Utah.
And
to touch on that,
guys, just real quick, guys, to anybody who hasn't, I know this sounds cheesy and people always ask for this, but it really does make a difference. It really, really, really helps the channel. If you could please click the like button and subscribe, even if you're subscribed to Mark's main channel. We're watching this right now on the USC sub channel that Mark does. And it really would mean a lot if you guys could give the video a like and a subscribe, just because it helps it so much with the algorithms. Something really amazing. I don't know if you guys have seen our video that we did for the Pac-12 show this week with Chancellor Elizabeth Chilton has 14,000 views. And a lot of that is because you guys all help spread it around. And Matt, many thanks to you for helping spread that around too, because that really, really does a tremendous amount to help Mark's channel.
Absolutely.
So, sorry guys, I know that everyone always says, smash the like button and click the bell, but it really, really does make a difference. And we really appreciate all of you guys who do. Truly, we really do. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Austin, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, to touch on Jeffrey's point, if USC can get the run game going against Utah, that's going to open up the offense a whole bunch. Because if Utah decides that if they feel like the run game is what's beating them and they decide to come stack the box, that's going to open up a lot of throws for Caleb Williams. And that offense, they love their deep throws, and you see how quick they could score with those big shots. So it'll be interesting to see if that run game helps set up the big shots and help them score quicker than normal.
I think that's a great point, Austin. And this is a game that we have the coaching staff to deliver a win. And you got to look at who we have as the head coach and the offensive guru. And this is a game for Lincoln Riley to show his offensive chops, his scheming, his game planning. And yes, there is Clark Phillips Jr. out of La Habra High School out here in Southern California. He's a great quarterback. And there's another guy you need to follow. If you don't follow ex-quarterback Max Brown, you need to, because he breaks down Clark Phillips pretty well. And he breaks down other quarterbacks, other players, just to a T. I've learned so much by following Max Brown. But this is a game for Lincoln Riley because it's Kyle Whittingham and Lincoln Riley for all the marbles. And I like where USC is with Lincoln Riley. I think he's going to have a few tricks up his sleeve. I think you're going to see Raleek Brown in space. He's going to get Malik Brown in space. There's going to be some players that are going to overwhelm, I believe, Utah. Yeah, I'm saying what I'm saying because this season has led up to this. And this is a statement game. Another statement game. So, yeah, I'm putting it out there on the line, but this is a game for Lincoln Riley. This is a game for USC. And we roll from here.
And I love Darius that points out Travis Dye is getting 150 against Utah. He has this game circled.
And remember, it's Phillips, but also you got Bishop back there at safety. Both those guys, that's what I'm saying about the secondary at Utah. That's what's got me worried. We cannot float it. Any of those those throws we've seen that are off and floaters, and a couple of times where Caleb is testing people, yeah, those are going to get picked off with this secondary. So I really hope we can tighten it up.
And guys, hey, I want to give a final warning here. One last call for anybody who wants to join in. We'd still love to hear from you guys. We're going to get ready to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. But we do want to hear from any of you guys, especially any of you guys that were at the game and have now gotten home. We just put the link down in the chat, so you can just pull it, click out of there. It's also in the description if you don't see the chat for some reason. We'd certainly love to hear from you guys. Because
I have a quick question, please.
Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off, Tony. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, I know we're talking about the Utah defense against the USC offense. How do we think the USC defense is going to fare against the Utah offense this week?
So I think, thank you for bringing that up, because this is the other really central plot point, and it's Cam Rising. Cam Rising has not delivered the goods for Utah. We've seen against Florida, now against UCLA as well, not making the clutch plays in the red zone on crucial down and distance situations. Cam Rising has really come up very small, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Caleb Williams are pretty clearly the two best quarterbacks, the Pac-12. Bo Nix might have an argument, but I think it's really Los Angeles has the best quarterbacks in the Pac-12. And going into the season, Cam Rising had a claim to that spot. He has not performed up to standard. That's a big reason why Utah is where it is. I know that UCLA shredded Utah's defense, but, in the first 10 minutes of that Utah-UCLA game, Utah controlled the play. It controlled the run of play. And you had Cam Rising throwing a big interception deep in UCLA territory, and Utah had a chance to get on top of that game, put UCLA behind the 8 ball, force the Bruins to play catch up. Rising coming up small was why the Bruins were able to get a lead and play that game in front on the scoreboard. And of course, Rising also threw the interception at the goal line against Florida in week 1, set exactly the wrong tone for the season. So this is Cam Rising's last stand. All chips on the table. If he doesn't deliver in this spotlight against Caleb Williams, Utah's not going to win. So this is a game for Cam Rising, and accordingly, it's a game for USC secondary, which has been very good this year, not allowing plays over the top. Well, Utah does not have that ultimate speed burner, and of course, Brant Quithie, he's out for the season, and he was their best pass catcher by far. So we have to remember that limits Cam Rising's options, but Rising has to find a way around USC's secondary without Quithie. This is a game that's really going to tell us a lot about where Cam Rising is.
And Matt, speaking of head scratcher decisions by quarterbacks, in consecutive weeks now, I'm sure someone else has seen this. Caleb Williams has taken like a 5 or 6 yard loss by running out of bounds and not throwing the ball away. Has anyone else noticed that? I'm looking in my hands. I'm like, what are you doing? He steps out. This is a consecutive weeks. He steps out 7, 5, 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage when he just needs to toss the ball and we go back to the line of scrimmage instead of making a 3rd and 16 like happened tonight. And I mean, I'm assuming people are talking to him. I'm just trying to figure out what's going in his thought process when he does that. It's hard to be critical of him because he's an amazing player, but that seems like a very basic mistake that he's making.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about that is you do that kind of thing only if you're trying to drain clock late in the game or late in the half, and those plays did not occur in that kind of situation. So, but I would say Caleb Williams did make a fundamental adjustment. I tagged a few of you guys in a tweet where USC was in the red zone and he checked down to Travis Dye on a running play. It's what he didn't do when he threw the interception against Arizona State. So we are seeing some elements of growth, and we can see that Lincoln Riley, if there's a problem one week, he fixes it the next week. So that's another problem. I expect Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams to collaborate and fix that for the Utah game and beyond.
And I do apologize. Somebody in the chat made the point, reminding me, like I've been trying to remind people as well. Caleb only played 6 or 7 games last year, and now he's 6 games in. So right now, let's call him a sophomore now, okay? So he has his 12 games under his belt now. So like you just said, and like the person who made the comment, I do apologize for getting your name or forgetting it. Is that he is getting better every game, and he's learning, like Matt just said, about that critical mistake he made, throwing that ball in the end zone, making it a wasted opportunity at the goal line. He's making those adjustments, which is great to see.
Going back to Cam Rising real quick, I think this is an interesting thought that I had recently about him, because everybody's talking about how he's not playing as well as he was last year and at the start of the season. But do you think that if he does not throw that interception in the Florida game at the end, do you think he'd be playing better right now? Because that after that interception against Florida, he's really kind of just has not played the way he did last year since.
You know what? I think UCLA would have smoked him either way.
Mm-hmm.
I think UCLA would have smoked him. And Darrell MVP is asking his Utah been to its points here. Hey, I want to give a quick shout out to friend of the show, Darrell MVP, who we tease. We call him our favorite SEC homer because he is actually our favorite of all the SEC folks, because he's an awesome guy, always has really smart, intelligent, spot-on comments, and he's a really great guy. Helps chats in lots of Mark shows, and we're honored to have him with us. So shout out to Drill MVP, fight on, and go Wildcats for you guys. Or not the Wildcats, sorry, it's been a long day. I'm like losing it tonight. Go Kentucky. Anyway, what do you guys think? Does Utah count as disappointing?
Well, you look at their 2 losses like we talked about earlier. They both their losses are on the road. Both their losses are 2 good teams. I mean, Florida's not a bad team, you guys. You know what I mean? And to go into the swamp, go across the country and lose that game the way it did. Yes, they looked like the better team. And that last play was, a big mistake, especially on the second down. I get that throws on 4th down. That was on 2nd down. So a disappointment. I think their season is disappointing, but again, losing to a great UCLA team on the road. I mean, that's football, right? And their first loss, a road trip like that. Again, I mean, I don't know. I think they've taken care of business at home, and I am worried about going in there. Disappointing, yes. We would like to them. They gave the rest of the country the narrative to say, well, look, at your best team in your conference lost to our 8th best team in our conference, etc. That Tony and Rick and others we've discussed ad nauseum. But at the same time,
really nice if they hadn't done that.
They may not.
It would have been really helpful.
Huh?
I said I'm laughing. I just said it would have been really helpful for everyone else if they hadn't done that.
Yeah, it just gives a lazy, easy narrative. But it might be interesting if they end up finishing 3rd or 4th in the conference. I shouldn't say that as we go in to play them next week. But I mean, UCLA obviously showed them that there might be a change in the guard on, and they've done a great job for carrying this conference for a couple of years when other teams have been down. But maybe this is a time where they're taking a step back.
I agree with you 100% there. I think the reason why, sorry, Austin, but I think the reason why that they're only disappointing because of the fact everybody expected them to potentially be a playoff team. That's the only reason why they're disappointing, I guess, because the 2 teams they've lost to aren't bad at all, and they still could be, a 8-4, 9-3 team, which would be really good. It's just most years it wouldn't be disappointing for Utah, but it's because of what people thought at the beginning of the season what Utah could do is the only reason why they're disappointing.
And Austin, before you get in, Austin, real quick, you know what's disappointing every single year? And you just reminded me of it there, Jeffrey? Preseason polls, because they're always disappointing because they're crap. So, sorry, Austin, what did you want to say?
Very true.
Oh, I was just going to say, Jeffrey hit the nail right on the head of what I was going to say of how Utah is expected to be a playoff team. Because everyone, like you said, Tim, the preseason polls and all these predictions that Utah is going to be in the college football playoffs, that they're the best team in the Pac-12. And here they are. And like you said, Tim, the loss to UCLA, a really good UCLA team. So
yeah, and the difference between good teams and great teams is like in Alabama, right? You go and you go to Texas and you have that test on the road, but you win. And I'm not cracking on Utah, but or USC going up to Corvallis, you go up there on the road to play a good team and you struggle, but you win. It's that but you win part that maybe separates those good teams from the great teams.
And hey, guys, a question here from Ralph. For those folks that aren't familiar with this, there's a wild dynamic that goes into the USC-UCLA game. And our amazing, awesome friend Chris is going to lose his mind and have an aneurysm as I say this. But it always frustrates UCLA that there's a lot of red in that stadium when we play them there. So USC has long said that, and there's actually some historical points to the fact that tournament when they built the Rose Bowl Stadium to replace Tournament Park in 1922, it was built with the idea that USC would be playing a lot there. UCLA was basically a junior college at the time. They're, I think, still part of the normal school. I don't think they'd actually even been constituted as UCLA yet. I forget the exact year that happened. But UCLA was basically the normal school then still. So it was USC's sort of home away from home. And USC has always felt very at home in the Rose Bowl. So even though it is UCLA's home, USC loves to go there.
Tony, I'd like to address a question in the chat from Joe Boyd.
Go for it.
He asks, what happened to Austin Jones? He didn't play. And at the beginning of the show, I gave my opinion on that. I don't have any injury information. Some injury issues were addressed for other players by Lincoln Riley towards the end of the week. But, Austin Jones had in the previous couple games blown some pass protection. So there's this mantra with the team, no blocky, no rocky. So that could be a possibility why he didn't play. Also, Darwin Barlow didn't play either. So I think it could be just a coach's decision. I don't believe that Austin Jones is injured. I could be wrong, but that's just, my opinion. We haven't heard any official reports. But as I shared earlier, the one concern I had, I was very happy for Travis Dye, but he took a beating tonight. I mean, he carried 28 times for, 149 tough yards. So I hope that he is going to be fine and ready to go against Utah because we're going to need him to tote the rock.
All right. Hey, guys. All right. We've got a special caller right now. We've got the king of Kentucky right now, Darrell MVP, calling to chat USC. Darrell, what did you think about USC Washington State?
USC is a great team, an elite team, and I believe they are the fourth best team in the country currently.
Wait, Darrell, can you say that again? Because I don't believe you.
Darrell, whatever you've been smoking, will you just keep smoking it every day?
I believe USC is the fourth best team in the country. Michigan hasn't looked good against Maryland and Indiana. Clemson didn't look good against Boston College, needed double overtime against Wake Forest. I know USC fans don't want to make the playoffs the first year because they're afraid of getting blown out by Georgia, Alabama, or Ohio State, but hey, very few teams even make the playoffs, and I think USC's got a really legitimate shot to make the playoffs.
You guys, let's give a fight on to Darrell.
Fight
on, Darrell.
My goodness.
I'm speechless. Darrell, I'm speechless.
Tim, hold on. Can somebody call Tim's wife? He's going to need some smelling salts to get him off the floor.
Wow. I love you, but we've gone round and round, right, Darrell, over the past year.
I wasn't sold with the whole cultural fit that Lincoln Riley would be able to pull off in the first year. It's just hard to get a bunch of different people from a bunch of different teams anywhere in any type of sport or just life in general and have him worked at it as well as Lincoln Riley has done. He's a great head coach, and this has honestly been the best coaching year, in my opinion, he's ever done. Even when he was at that school in Norman.
Yeah, and hey, Dario, has today ever shown more than anything imaginable the difference the coaches make with how things are going in Norman versus how they're going in LA?
Yeah, it's a very stark gap between USC and Oklahoma. I kind of feel bad for the people of Oklahoma and their fans. They might not even make a bowl game this year.
Yeah, we gotta remember that not all the people on Twitter don't represent the entire Sooner fan base. And
they don't. And there's awesome people in Oklahoma.
I've been really lucky to meet a lot of actually really cool Sooner fans, and for those people, I feel sorry. But those dudes on Twitter, I can't wait to see what they're gonna be talking about this week, because they've been
they're still trying to blame Alex Grinch.
Yeah, I can't believe how bad Oklahoma's defense is. 55 against TCU, 49 against Texas.
And it should have been
the worst
70.
Team in the Big 12.
Yeah, Dario, I think if you and I had shown up, Sark would have let us throw a couple of passes in there.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Tony. Tony, thank you for the compliment you gave me when I chatted about Utah. I'll be honest.
Dario, you're awesome.
Thank you. As a college football fan in general, I was disappointed Utah lost the game, because I want to see great matchups, and a lot of the luster of USC Utah has kind of gone down the wayside, because Utah, in my opinion, at this point shouldn't even be ranked, unfortunately for them. So it is what it is, though.
They will be ranked still.
Hopefully we can kill that off for you, though. We'll do our best.
But the thing, the real, I have to say this to you. I agree with you, but again, traveling and we have to give credit. See, here's the thing. So, right, I'll give you like an SEC analogy. If a team right now played, I don't know, a good team played, let's say not Arkansas anymore. Let's say they played Tennessee, right, who's red hot right now, and they lost. Are we gonna drop them because we're like, well, no, because Tennessee is a solid program and they're a good team, right? I think we need to hit the brakes on. Well, they just lost to UCLA. UCLA might end up being the best team in this conference, possibly.
Oh, okay, UCLA is a legitimate team.
So you have to think to yourself, okay, so they lost to a good, decent Florida team on the road, and they lost to possibly a really good, very, very good, God, it's hurts to say, Bruin team. So we got to slow down and say we don't think they should be ranked, because I've watched them play, and they are one of the top 25 teams in the country.
Utah's going to be ranked.
I understand Utah will probably be ranked, but Florida only beat Missouri by 7 points today.
And how did
Missouri almost beat Georgia?
How did Georgia do against Missouri?
They only won by 4, but my point is Florida has lost 2 SEC teams. They've looked bad against the other one they played in Missouri.
I know.
Florida, I just don't think good. Sorry.
We have I mean, fair enough, but I mean, I think they're a decent team. And
I also think that Utah blew that game.
Oh yeah, but
like that's the thing is like, I mean, Florida. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Florida, but I thought that Utah had that script. The game was in hand multiple times. They screwed it up.
Oh, if Florida and Utah played 10 games, I think Utah wins 6 or 7 of them.
I'll go with more like 8 or 9 of them, but yeah.
But the thing is, we only play one game in college football. So, like,
Darrell, you're right about some of the luster being knocked off this game with USC and Utah because Utah lost. But Utah, like you said, I know what you said about them not, dropping because they lost and all that, but they're still going to be ranked. And Utah, they've lost to 2 good teams. They're still going to be ranked. And USC, when you have a big game, USC being probably, they're probably maybe going to be 6. I don't know if they're going to move up. Probably not. They're probably going to be 6 or whatever. It's still going to have the luster of it because Michigan, Indiana was to me, not a great game. But they put it on Fox because of the fact that it's Michigan. Michigan's fourth, and Indiana's terrible. And they still put it on Fox. And they put TCU Kansas on FS1 because they even though that was a better game, they're not brands of the sport. The luster of the game, even though you're right, it's going to be off a little bit, the game's still going to have a lot of high profile because USC's in the playoff hunt. That's how it works anyway.
There was a comment.
I agree with that. For me, as somebody who wants to see good competitive games, because I thought this would be a one possession game, 50-50, either team can win it. I think USC's got a 75-85% chance to win this game.
Amen.
Someone popped up in the chat that UCLA looks like the best team passing the eyeball test. 2 weeks ago, people were saying the eyeball test that Washington might be the best team. We need to let everyone play each other. These matchups that are happening out there on the fringes, eyeball test is far from empiric, right? So
can we reflect on, I think, the lesson that we did learn in the last 3 weeks? My dad, you guys, some of you guys don't know this. My dad played for Duffy Doherty at Michigan State. My dad's poor Spartans, guys, they're bad.
Mm-hmm.
And we based a lot of our like Washington hype on the Michigan State win. And life is rough in East Lansing right now.
That's why Tim's point is correct. The preseason polls are garbage because you don't know how a team's going to perform. Just because Michigan State was good last year doesn't mean that they're going to be good this year, especially when a lot of their success was because of one player, Kenneth Walker.
And the eyeball test leaves out a lot of, actually includes and leaves out a lot of variables. So, until these teams start playing each other and we know actually who are the winners, who are the contenders and who are the pretenders, we need to back away from, UCLA's the best because of passing the eyeball test. I think they've had 2 great weeks.
Excuse
me, guys. But I also watched them for the first 3 or 4 weeks of the year, and they look like hot garbage. So I mean, let's see what happens throughout the span of between now and November 19th.
It's gonna be
That's
fun.
fine, but I think we should give some credit to Arizona State as well. They got a new head coaching staff. The players could have easily folded this season in because they're probably not going to make a bowl game at 4 losses, and they came out there, they performed well, and they beat a good Washington team.
And so I think last week looks a lot better than what people were giving it, again, all week long.
And Jarrell, I don't know if you heard when we were talking about ASU a little bit ago. Sean Aguano is one of the legendary high school coaches of the state of Arizona, and he's been on the ASU staff for the last couple of years. And he took over that team, instantly started to try to make cultural changes, like booting guys out of practice if they were late, and people just couldn't get over. They kept saying, "Wow, this is a different team." And I laughed when I was like, "Oh, great! Could we have had one more week of Herm, guys? Could my Trojans have just had one more week of Herm?" And he got that team in like 2.5 weeks. He's got that team turned around. I think you're totally right that it's a definite shout out to ASU. Like that's a difficult thing, and they handled it pretty well. It was really fun. Ashley Adamson from Pac-12 Network was just having a blast as the ASU students came rushing onto the field. That was their first big win in a long time there.
Yeah, and
Tony deserve all the credit.
He was the coach for Brendan Rice when he was at Chandler. So again, he knows a lot of the guys. He's coached a lot of the guys throughout the Pac-12. That Chandler team is like is probably the best team or one of the best teams in Arizona. And as we all know, the talent coming out of Arizona now is getting legit, and it has been for a good decade or so.
Oh, Gixer, no, I'm not. You're absolutely right. You're 100% right, Gixer. I'm not giving credit to anything with Herm's anything, just to Sean Aguano for stepping into a terrible situation and actually starting to do what Arizona State probably should have done 5 years ago, because the Herm experiment was a complete bust. Yeah, you're totally right. I'm not talking about their overall recruiting stuff. I think they need to replace that whole athletic department, but that's a whole nother kettle of fish.
The key word you said in your previous statement was culture. I've noticed that culture seems to be the theme of everything. Like if you have a good culture, it translates on the football field. I mean, like USC. Now that Lincoln Riley's here and he brings a good culture from what he had at Oklahoma over to USC, you guys are 6-0 bowl eligible this year if all else fails. But the culture change means a lot to the programs because it gives them a different mindset.
Yeah, it does. And that's a great point about culture. But I like to think that a lot of what's going on at USC is culture, but it's also they've got a hell of a lot of talent that Riley pulled in, and like we were talking about those halftime adjustments, we've got elite coaches.
It's both.
And all those things are important.
Because I'll tell you, under Clay Helton and under Paul Hackett, we had a lot of talent. I mean, Paul Hackett had a quarterback that was pretty lousy. Some guy, what's his name? Oh, Carson Palmer. When you got the culture right, the talent was already there to win. Well, hey, guys, we have been on way longer than we thought. So why don't we go around the table and give kind of final thoughts on the USC game and the week ahead for the Trojans. Darrell, you want to start?
Yeah, USC did what they were supposed to do, take care of a decent team. USC versus Utah, that's the game everybody had circled before the season started. Lost a little bit of its luster, in my opinion, but still going to be a good matchup. I think USC wins probably by 10 to 14 points, goes 7-0, and hopefully USC fans are looking forward to playing either Georgia, Alabama, or Ohio State in the playoffs.
Hey, Darrell, from your lips to God's ears. Hey, thanks for calling in the show. We always love having you. You're welcome to call into any of these shows or the Pac shows.
Well, I needed something to take off my mind of Kentucky losing to South Carolina, so.
I'm sorry, Darrell, I knew the result, but I didn't want to bring it up to you.
It's fine. We didn't have our starting quarterback, Will Levis, and if we don't have him for the rest, Kentucky doesn't have him for the rest of the year, we'll probably go 7-5 or 6-6. So, just is what it is.
I'm sorry, that sucks. He's a great quarterback. He seems like a really cool guy too.
Yeah, they saw him on the sideline in a walking boot, so I don't know we're going to get him back anytime soon.
Ugh.
That's fine.
I hate that.
Good luck. All right, thanks, Darrell.
Thanks,
Thank
Darrell.
you guys for having me on.
Thank you.
Anytime. Austin, give us your final thoughts on the Trojans.
Congratulations on the big win once again. Defense looked pretty good in the second half after they got over their first half rough beginning. Defense put it together. Offense had a complete day. Travis Dye, he's a beast. And looking to the Utah USC game, I could see it being a defensive game just because of the DNA of Utah. They're going to force USC to run the ball, and they're not going to give up big throws, in my opinion. I could see it being 24-17 USC.
I like that. And by the way, before we let you go, Austin, good job with your Louisville team taking care of the Cavaliers today. Well done. I remember you said you were worried about that. I told you don't worry, they're going to win because I don't think that the Cavs are that good, but you guys took care of it. It was a good job.
Nice win, Austin.
Hey, I'm happy with the win, and congratulations. Fight on. Good night, guys.
Good night,
See ya.
Austin.
Thanks, Austin. Good night.
All right, Jeffrey.
I'm thanks for having me on this long again. I was, again, I was on Mark's show and then it got cut off. So I just thought I'd come over here and chat with you guys. But again, I've had a blast on here, but the only other point I was going to make, and I thought it was interesting that Darrell brought up about USC being the number 4 team potentially in the country, so far. I was kind of going to ask about what you guys thought about that. And the fact, obviously Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State are the top 3, but I think it's kind of almost not, you can say a 4-way, but you have like Michigan, Clemson, USC, and even maybe Tennessee are kind of all right there. There's not a lot of separation. USC's been very impressive, but I mean, Clemson had the Wake Forest win on the road. That was a good win. I mean, Clemson's been playing, relatively well. I know Michigan's been struggling a little bit. But, I mean, USC could definitely be the number 4 team in the country, especially, if they went out, they're obviously going to be in the playoff. And I hope for all you guys they do. But I just real quick want to hear what you guys think about, do you think USC is the number 4 team or one of those other teams?
Well, I think Clemson's playing really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
The DJ is that quarterback I knew he would be. Their front 7 is just amazing. and even their secondary is getting better. So until I didn't see their game today. Until I see otherwise, I think in my opinion, they're solidified themselves in the number 4 spot. But I mean, I didn't also see the Michigan game, but I heard that they there were some questions there as well. I don't know. I like where we are right now. I think where the spotlight, I think that spotlight tightens down the closer you get towards number 1. I like where USC, we're in striking distance. We win out. That's the way, then we have our own, we have a path to the playoffs is what I'm saying. So I'm good with that. I think I'm good with that.
I like the way you framed the question, Jeffrey. Obviously Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State, they're on a different tier. And then you have Michigan, Clemson, USC, and Tennessee. That's the next tier. And we just finished the halfway point of the season, 6 games. And I think these 4 teams are going to have to show much more. And it'll be by the end of the year, we'll find out who the best 4th team is. But you got to look at Tennessee going into Baton Rouge and putting up a 40 spot on them. That doesn't happen all the time. So Tennessee's for real. Michigan, yeah, there could be questions with Michigan on how they handled Indiana today and how they handled Maryland the other day. And then you certainly have USC. It's a work in progress. What I saw today was very impressive. And then you got Clemson, and Clemson's, they're no joke. They're a real team. So I think it's too soon to tell. And USC at number 6, I think we stay number 6. I'm good with that,
And we're gonna find out on 3 of them, like USC traveling at Utah, and then obviously you got Penn State and Michigan, and you've got Alabama, Tennessee. So all 3 of those games are fantastic, and they're probably a couple of those are going down. I don't know who it's going to be. I would probably say, if Bryce Young's back, Alabama probably is a favorite to beat Tennessee. I mean, they're going to be favored to beat Tennessee, but they're probably should beat Tennessee unless Tennessee plays at their best or whatever. And then obviously you got USC going on the road at Utah. You asked your thoughts on that game, and I'll probably pop on Wednesday and talk about it more. But I think USC probably will win by 7-10. Utah is struggling a bit, but they're still formidable. And then obviously Michigan, Penn State, I have no idea. I don't know because, again, Michigan's been struggling a little bit to kind of, beat some teams. I mean, obviously their defense is really good. Indiana couldn't do anything in the second half, which stinks. I kind of wanted Indiana to win, obviously. But Michigan's offense, J.J. McCarthy, they're kind of milking him a bit. And I know why, because they keep talking about it. The commentators are like how they don't want to, overwork him because he's, hasn't been their starting quarterback long. But if they can get J.J. McCarthy going 100%, kind of like how you even talking about Caleb Williams, how he hasn't been a quarterback super long as a starting quarterback. If J.J. McCarthy can get going, Caleb Williams can get going and all that, then these teams are going to keep winning. So we'll see.
You said it best. It's all going to play out over the next week or two, and we should have a clearer picture of what's going on.
I think they're going to call.
And Jeffrey, I'll tell you, I'm just excited about the fact that we're in the position this fast to even have this discussion.
Yeah, it's amazing in itself, right?
That's what I just, when I get myself in my my mode of like I instantly put myself back in 2007 mode, and I get all excited. And then I say, wait a minute, pause. Like, how amazing is it that we're able to even have this discussion?
Yep.
So
and they're going to call next Saturday Separation Saturday, because that's what's going to happen. You're gonna separate the pretenders from the contenders, and you brought up the games that are going to prove it: Alabama, Tennessee, Michigan, Penn State, USC, Utah. And I don't know who Clemson has, but I bet you they probably got a decent game as well. So we'll take a look and see who Clemson is playing as well. But that's Separation Saturday.
And Ralph, in my heart, I hoped for it. But in my head, I figured it would take at least another year, and it's amazing. I love it. I mean, Coach Riley is every bit as amazing, and he's capitalizing. The reason that we have, if you look on his screen right here, the reason that we have the whole crew here is because we're giving credit for both USC's program and Wazzu's program to organizational alignment. Some of you guys got to see, I was going to mention this in just a minute, you got to see us chat with Wazzu Chancellor Elizabeth Chilton, who's the one who hired Jake Dickert and believed in the culture that he was going to bring to that program, and Pat Shun, who runs their athletic department. I mean, that is a great, well-run athletic department, and that's why that team in the middle of their season last year, by state law, I'm not going to argue it here, but they had to fire 5 of their coaches, including their head coach, in the middle of their season, and they actually got better. They were scrounging around trying to find like your substitute teachers. They were scrounging around to find temporary substitute coaches to come in and help their team. And they finished the season better than they started. And now they've got a team this year. I mean, I honestly think we should be their only loss. So, kudos to Wazzu. But our team right there with Mike Bone, Brandon Sosna, who unfortunately after saving us, he's going to save the Detroit Lions. And gosh dang it, I'm telling you, if anybody can save the Detroit Lions, it's going to be him. Along with President Fulton, Coach Riley. I mean, that kind of alignment is just done amazing things, and I think it's going to change the sport.
Speaking of, I just checked. Clemson is playing at Florida State next weekend, so there you go.
Another one.
Those are the 4 teams. Those 4 teams are going to have next week to prove their point.
It's going to be a fun one. Hey, Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And everybody, you should be following Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports. He does an absolutely fantastic job. And
thanks, Jeffrey.
All right. LBC, you want to go?
Yeah. Thanks, guys. It's great chatting with you on the post-game show tonight. What I want to leave everybody with is, when I was at the Coliseum tonight, they introduced the player of the game, and I was prepared to hear Travis Dye's name announced. And you were there, Tim. They announced Thule as the player of the game. He had 3 sacks and 4 TFLs. And I think that speaks volumes to where USC is at the midpoint of this season. It's the defense that stood out tonight, giving up 14 points, 5 sacks, 9 TFLs. Caleb Williams had a serviceable game. The offense was balanced. I believe Caleb Williams had 188 yards passing. The rushing game had 181 yards rushing. And we needed the defense to contain Washington State. They're a very well-coached team. I think Washington State did a great job hiring Jake Dickert. He's going to pay dividends. He already is. And USC was able to solve Cam Ward. Didn't get any turnovers, but it's very pleasing to see that the defense is there. And totally surprised me. I think the second half of the season, again, we're going to build upon it. And next week is an opportunity for USC to make yet another statement, and looking forward to seeing what Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch have prepared on both sides of the ball for the Utes as we roll into Rice Eccles. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate it. Tim and Tony, wonderful job. Love hanging with you guys and talking USC football. Fight on.
Fight on, Rick. All right, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I like what Rick talked about there with Tui Pelotu. I mean, he's had a sack or a half sack in 4 of the 6 games, and he's always in the backfield disrupting. And that's the thing that I want to talk about. You have your Talanis, and you have a Bird has been that guy as well. A lot of these guys, they don't get the points for the sacks. They don't get the MVP player of the game, but they disrupt the play. They're in the backfield. And even you have a guy like Foreman, which was good to see him in the game quite a bit early as well. Even though he wasn't getting the sacks, even though he wasn't even getting the tackles, he was back there harassing guys. And I think he's getting the idea that this team, this defense as a whole is really coming together. And we're all picking holes in them, talking about, gap security, et cetera, this or that. But we're talking, they held them to 14 points again. And if this defense can keep themselves somewhere around, like the Real's talking about, I can't remember the Real. in the top 30 in defense, as far as scoring and total yards. I honestly think with this offense, we're going to be a hard out for anybody, including UCLA, Utah, and whoever we might get lucky enough to play if we do play in the championship game. So this is going to be a long year. I think we're getting way out ahead of ourselves. Anyone that thinks that this isn't going to be our biggest test, even though they have 2 losses, I think is crazy. This is a great Utah team, and they are going to test us. And I'm hoping that from the beginning to the end of the game, they come with that juice, they come with that energy, they come with that Riley intensity, that culture, and that USC doesn't fall behind. Because this is the kind of team, if we fall behind, it's going to be tough to catch up. So again, thanks everyone for showing up, and I'll see everybody at the tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, you guys, 7:45 after dark. We'll do a wrap up of all college football with Ben, exploring with Ben on Mark's main channel. So thanks for everyone showing up.
Well, I want to start off by thanking you guys. Everybody who has joined us and calling in tonight. We had some new folks calling in, everybody that's in the chat. Everybody from the Voice of College Football community. We've got, Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports and DeReal MVP and everybody. Our goal in creating this was to have a place that all USC fans could talk about the Trojans, and how fortuitous, what an amazing season this is already turning out to be. And so the reason that we're here is for you guys, and we really appreciate having you guys as part of this community here, and I can't thank you enough. I just want to close by giving a shout out to all the Trojans in the Trojan family, and especially to the folks, our new Trojans in the athletic department, who have embraced what the spirit is of our school, have embraced the history of our school, and understand their role in it. And they're doing some amazing things that are making us all proud. So, you guys always hear me say every game in the Pac-12 is a trap game. And I honestly believe that. Next week is going to be an epic showdown. And nothing makes me more exciting than, without getting over our skis, thinking about the potentials for just how big that USC-UCLA game is. And I think that is going to be an amazing statement that's going to catapult us into an amazing future in the Big Ten. So, guys, it's a great night to be a Trojan. They're all great nights to be a Trojan, but this is especially one. Have a great night, everyone. Be safe. I hope all of your teams, whoever you root for, won today, and fight on. We'll see you next week.